There. Good evening, everyone. And we've been in a closed session, so we've already called the meeting to order. Starting the regular session now in response to COVID-19. Good evening, everyone. And we've been in a closed session, so we've already called the meeting to order. Starting the regular session now in response to COVID-19. Does it continue? Okay, thank you. In response to COVID-19, we continue to hold council meetings electronically. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting of council electronically by accessing the meeting, which is live stream on our YouTube channel, the address which is on our website. So tonight we have public meetings for planning items, and they begin immediately after delegations, presentations, and petitions. And there are no additions to the agenda, and I'd better ask for disclosures of pecuniary interest. Are there any items to declare? Seeing none, then moving on to, just a second. I did want to make a few remarks tonight before we move to our delegation. So I've been doing some reading, and we've been working on our strategic plan here, and some thoughts converged. Typically, when people are in leadership positions, they try to develop strategy and set directions using all kinds of tools and processes like we've seen as we've been working through our strat plan. And ultimately, then they work out the vision and direction for the organization. And finally, they boil it all down to steps and tactics that ultimately lead to successful execution, ensure the organizations are on track for success. One of the things that can play havoc with all of this planning is uncertainty. And every organization always faces uncertainty all of the time. But given the right amount of analysis and research, there are things like costs and trends and capacity that we can figure out and understand. And that means that a lot of the things that you might describe as unknown are actually knowable. So your homework and effort will prepare you to take you in the right direction. And then there's the other kind of unknown, not the knowable part. And this is something that people who study uncertainty and strategy and all that call residual uncertainty. And these researchers found that they can categorize residual uncertainty into 4 categories. The highest level is described as true ambiguity. When I think about our COVID world right now, I think true ambiguity is a good way to describe the things that we're facing and that we're working in. So last week, Wednesday, the medical officer of health issued a Section 22 order, and you all know about this, restaurants and personal care establishments and fitness facilities. But what that meant for us here at Middlesex Centre in a practical way was that everyone had to pivot again in order to be ready for the 12:01 Saturday morning compliance deadline at our facilities. So between that time of the announcement and Saturday, there were calls to all the user groups and to the rental groups and to the associations and everybody who uses our facilities. There were lots and lots of questions that came out of this activity about exactly what the rules required, how they changed, why, from owners of the facilities across Ontario and sporting organizations and municipalities as well. And because of all the questions that came from all of those groups, including our staff here at Middlesex Centre, the health unit announced that it was hosting a town hall meeting, and that was going to happen on Friday afternoon to clarify what all these new changes meant and how they should be implemented. At the end of the meeting, there were so many questions that there was a commitment ultimately from the unit to make sure that all of the outstanding unanswered questions were categorized and put in boxes so that they could provide thorough answers to everybody and make sure that everyone knew what they had to do before Saturday morning kind of thing. Our staff worked with our municipal partners across the county, the Middlesex Health Unit, and all of those groups I mentioned earlier, associations and user groups and rental people and everyone. They made sure that our ICE areas were properly divided. Everyone complied with new masking rules. The revised numbers for players, for refs, for chaperones, the parents were being adhered to. The testing areas, change rooms, and all the other details were taken care of. And they figured it all out and they got it done. And the really good news is they not only got it done, there's a surprise visit on Saturday morning from the health unit, from a staff member. And they indicated not only did our facilities meet requirements, but the execution, that is the way in which things were done, was the best implementation they had seen. It's been a stressful and trying time for everybody. No one knows when we're going to see the light at the end of this tunnel, or even what that end is going to look like. So I want to say thank you to our staff for your efforts and your work to make things better for our residents here in Middlesex Centre. And let's continue to support each other, work together, and we'll get through this. So now moving on to our delegation, we are going to hear from Mike DeVos at Spreed Associates. Okay.
Forward to regular council items, the adoption of the minutes, followed by the consent agenda.
And then we will
attempt to continue to have Mike get on the line too.
Okay, so we can work with that. So the adoption of the minutes of the special meeting held on the 14th. Is there a mover that they are adopted as printed? Councillor Arts and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried, thank you. Moving to the consent agenda, there are 6 items here. Are there any here that you would like pulled or questions asked staff on those? Okay, nothing on the consent agenda. Then the motion before us is that items 7.1 through 7.6 found under consent agenda for October 28th be adopted as recommended. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Scott, all in favor? That is carried, thank you. And okay, moving on to staff reports then. The first item here is the COVID cost containment plan. We'll table this then. Could I have a mover and a seconder that report CPS 52/2020 outlining the municipal cost containment plan update be received for information? Mover, Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Scott. And I will look to Tiffany to present the report, please.
So through you, Mayor DeVete, this report is an update on our cost containment plan that was presented in May. It also references the Safe Restart program that was launched by the provincial government to assist municipalities with costs associated with COVID-19 and lost revenues and overall financial hardships. So the requirement for the phase 2 funding is that the municipality is facing other COVID-19 financial implications that were not covered in their original phase 1 funding that we received. The original phase 1 funding was $397,200. And on top of that, they also take a look at the cost containment plan that the municipalities have put in place. After a detailed analysis, and this has gone through myself as well as the different department heads, the cost containment plan, we will have enough cost containment for the end of the year projected, and that is with the assumptions in place as of today. Earlier in the council meeting, you referenced the provincial orders or the health unit orders that impacted the wellness center, our arenas. If something like that happens again, this could have a big impact on our cost containment strategies and future lost revenues. So we will be keeping that in mind. However, at this time, after reviewing all of these costs, we still are over $1 million of cost containment where we should have a surplus at the end of this year that we'll be able to put that into reserve funds to fund the projects that were deferred in 2020 into 2021. And so at this time, I'm not recommending that we apply for the phase 2 funding based on the ministry guidelines, but I am open to any questions if council has any.
Thank you for that report. Questions for our Director of Corporate Services. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the Treasurer, to Tiffany. we're sitting at 1.5 cost containment. How much would that have to, if they change the rules and we lose a bunch more money from arenas, what would that have to drop to before we would be eligible for a phase two, applying for a phase two support?
And through you, Mayor DeVete. So ideally, Scott, the Director of Community Services, and I did go through the revenues related to the arenas, and that amounts within the next 3 months to a little over $400,000. So that would bring the $1 million down to about 600,000, maybe 500,000. So we would still be in a safe place to have enough cost containment for year end. So it would be about $1 million, even with that lost revenue, because what the province does take into account is any type of surplus that the municipality might have. So these might not have been related to COVID-19 or specific cost containment that we did in COVID-19. It could be that we are under budget at the end of the year. That also would count, I guess, against us in obtaining any of this funding. So even if the arenas did close, we would still be in the position that we would have a surplus at this time, but that is using our best estimates until the end of the year. So that's projecting what those costs would be, as well as any other lost revenues.
Okay, other questions? All right, seeing none then, we had a mover and a seconder. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Middlesex Centre Winter Operations Plan. The item, oh, wait a minute. Do we move forward or? Yes? Okay, sorry, make sure we should move forward and didn't want to cut off our delegate. The motion for us is that Council endorse the Winter Operations Planning document for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre as attached to Appendix A, and that Council endorse the Viral Pandemic Emergency Winter Maintenance Operations Plan as appended in Section B. Now, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Scott. And I think our Director of Public Works is presenting this. Are you there, Rob?
Yeah. Good evening, Council and Mayor. Sorry, here we go. Yeah, so I'll start from the top here. So as Council knows, our municipality's transportation division of our Public Works and Engineering Department, that we provide winter maintenance on all of our roads and sidewalks in the municipality. That totals nearly, well, actually over 600 kilometers of linear length with roads and sidewalks combined. The bulk of that is obviously roads with nearly 600 kilometers roads themselves, about half gravel and half hard surface. So this includes routine patrolling, clearing icy roadways, clearing snow, and maintaining traffic signs and lighting throughout the winter season. The level of service that is required on the roads is determined upon the classification of the roads. And the classification of the roads is based upon the average daily traffic volumes in combination with the speed limits on those roads. So the bulk of our roads are class 3, 4, and 5s, and 6. And there's an identification of the depth of snow and the time that we have to clear that snow from those roads depending on the classification. So the bulk of ours are 12 hours or longer, up to 24 hours for our response time. One of the things that impacts our time or that our operations is that through the commercial vehicle licensing or the CVOR, that the number of hours that people are allowed to work per day is regulated. So drivers must have at least 10 hours off between their shifts. And there's a limit on the number of hours that they can work consecutively or total within a week. So that's part of our operations plan as well. So our winter maintenance program is made up of our supervisory staff, 2 lead hands, and then our 15 permanent equipment operators, 2 mechanics, and then we have 9 seasonal temporary equipment operators, which effectively run from the end of October till the end of March. Every year. We operate 3 different shifts throughout the winter, one starting at 5 a.m., one 7:30 a.m., and then one 4 p.m. that runs into the evening. This is just to give us better coverage and result in less overtime with the staggered shifts. To accomplish the snow clearing and other work required, we utilize 14 pieces of combination road plowing and de-icing equipment, 5 graders, 2 front-end loaders when required, some rubber tire backhoes, and 2 sidewalk machines that do the sidewalk in the urban areas. So generally, our snow clearing operations, we usually would be less than the 8 to 12 hours to clear priority roads, and then under the 24 hours for all municipal roads. And in most cases, depending on the winter or on the storm event, our response times are far less than that. So as noted, the higher class roads take priority as far as snow clearing. Classes 1 to 3 are high priority. Classes 1 would be county roads, primarily 1 and 2. As mentioned, our highest classification is 3, with 4, 5, and 6 being many of our roads. So this something new this year that we've added in is obviously the viral pandemic emergency winter maintenance operations plan. It's not unlike what we have for a viral pandemic plan for the remainder of staff. This is just, we've looked at our shifts that are required over the winter and to accommodate potential downtime if we are impacted by COVID or staff being absent. We've taken on some additional casual employees that are not guaranteed hours, but they're essentially backups to our existing winter operations if they need to be called upon. We've also have our 2 mechanics, which are both mechanics, but they're also licensed, so they can operate snowplows if required. We hope not to be in that position, but if we had to go through a period of time where we had to rely on them for snow clearing as well, we would have the option of getting some of our maintenance work done off-site if necessary. So the first priority would be to call on the mechanics, or so to call on the casual employees if required, and then go to the mechanics if we needed to as a second option. And then scenario 3 would be if we're down a number of operators, then we can pull off our sidewalk clearing as well. We do have the option because the sidewalk clearing isn't mandated in such a short time frame. We can pull those operators and use them on the snowplows and defer the sidewalk clearing for a longer time. If we get into a situation where we have a significant number of staff off, primarily with the expectation that it would be related to COVID, we can look at reducing our level of service on roads and declaring a snow event, even shutting down certain roads other than to local traffic if required. We certainly hope that we don't get to that. And then as another backup plan, the county and lower tiers have been communicating, and we are entering into an informal agreement essentially where we will share resources. So if one of the lower tiers of the county finds ourselves shorthanded as a result of COVID or any other reason this winter, is that we will call on others and see if we can effectively borrow a operator and a plow to facilitate clearing on our roads. The intent would be not to recover cost through the winter season, but it would be tracked and then looking at the balances at the end of March, and then working out any compensation that's required back or forth. Financial implications of this plan, that all winter maintenance activities described within the report and the documents, that they're supported through the budgets that we have in place for 2020 and in 2021, or proposed for 2021. So we don't see anything out of the ordinary, even with staff time, the backup, the way that we're structuring the backup plans for staffing if we have downtime. Is not taking on extra full-time bodies. It's just a allocation of resources if required. As far as the snow clearing routes, there's not a lot of change from what people have seen in the past. There have been some minor adjustments just in relation to developments that have come online where we have assumed roads or where there's been additional roads put in place. through new developments, because we do snow clearing for developers at a cost as well. So, but no major changes there, and so the same number of routes. I think that's it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you for that report. Are there questions for the Pwe Director? I don't see any, Rob, but I have a question. I was wanting to ask you about the impact of any supply chain issues. Are there any kinds of materials or supplies that you need that are potentially impacted by COVID, or that you might be stressed about?
No, great question, but no, nothing thus far. We supply our own sand, and our operations have been hauling that from the pit to our storage sheds, so that's well underway. We have a salt contract in place. No concerns expressed there. Same with fuel. I mean, and that's fine as well. So those are our three primary resources plus staff. Trucks are in good shape. We're expecting delivery of our newest truck within hopefully next week. So no concerns at this point.
Okay, thank you then. Seeing no other questions then, I'll call the vote on number 8.2. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, thanks for that report. And I understand that Mike is ready to present. So I'd like to welcome Mike DeVos from Spreets, and he's going to speak to us about the Colbert Municipal Drain.
Hello.
Hello, it's nice to see you.
Yes, I was only able to get in through my phone, so everybody does have a copy of the report, so I'll speak verbally to it and answer questions. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, this report was prepared in accordance with Section 4 of the Drainage Act for a new municipal drain. It is an existing open ditch that was constructed in 1896 under the Ditches and Watercourses Act as an award drain. So it has an official name. It's the Colbert Award Drain. This report is going to reconstruct the upper portion of that across lots 11 to 13 south of Medway Road. There was a petition by a number of landowners to reestablish the open channel in places. It has filled in slowly over time to the point where it hardly exists. Some of the areas are very wet now and have become wetland and swampy areas. So we did have to consult with some of the agencies and get approvals to be able to work. Portions of it are in actually a provincially significant wetland. So we were able to obtain approval to bring it back to the same design level as the 1896 report, but not any deeper than that. So the landowners, upon knowing that, they decided that it was worth their while for us to proceed to do that. Some places it is very minor work to get it back to its original grade, and in other places there's a bit more work. It is a black muck soil area, so the soil conditions and the ground, the wetness is going to be the biggest challenge for us to be able to construct this drain. It's going to have to be done in numerous stages. We're going to be able to work a little ways upstream. We're going to have to stop, let the area dewater and stabilize before we can continue upstream. The channel is in the bottom half, or bottom 2/3 is fairly shallow, about 2 feet deep, but it will provide much better drainage than what is there. There will be a culvert across Adelaide Street that will need to be replaced. From a grade perspective, we're not going any deeper. We could have used the old pipe, but the county requested, because of its condition and age, that we replace it. And then going upstream on the east side of Adelaide, there's one old farm crossing that will be replaced with a new pipe culvert. up to the top end of the drain, which is Lindenshire Golf Course. There are 3 branches that were requested. One for the area in lot 12 south of the municipal drain. So there's an area of field there which we need to get a subsurface outlet for. We can do that marginally. We can provide a buried pipe for the first little bit, but then have to dump out into an improved road ditch as we head down to the main drain. So it's going to have minimum cover, and the landowner is going to have to do a little bit of improvement to the very north end of that field to be able to get an outlet. But they were informed of that, and they wished for us to continue with submitting the report and proceed with the work. There's a second branch on the same property in the northeast corner. There's another stretch of field where there's water coming across Medway Road through a surface culvert, and that area is quite steep and has quite a bit of water movement over top of the ground. And they've asked us to put in a tile drain with a catch basin in front of the surface pipe on the south side of Medway Road. And then there was also another request for a branch near the top end, which takes an area along Medway Road in lots 11. There's areas on both sides of the road that find their way across Medway Road into the Lindenshire Golf Course property, and then head west close to, there's a Hydro 1 site there, and then down through into the field of the landowner in lot 12. So that branch would be an open channel and swale to divert water and better capture that water before it goes into and through the golf course. There would still be a low flow pipe to allow some of the water to go into a pond within the golf course, but the major flows would be diverted around the active portion of the golf course. At the very bottom of the drain, where we get close to terminating the drain, we do go through a few residential properties, and there's a culvert in there that needs to come out. We did discuss with the landowner the potential of reinstalling it at a lower elevation, but it was decided due to the cost that we would just remove it. And like I said, the biggest challenge will be the soils. And so the costs as far as an open channel go for this project are fairly high, but the owners were made aware and they did wish us to proceed. So I'll stop and open up to questions.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there questions on the report? Councillor Arts.
Through your mayor to Mr. DeVos. I had a question on branch A. It seems to, why can't it just be on lot 12? It goes from along lot 13, it goes along Adelaide, crosses Adelaide, and then goes into lot 12. Wouldn't it have been, like, I was just wondering why it just didn't go from lot 12 straight to the ditch.
Yes, that's a good question. Initially we had proposed the branch to be on lot 12, but through discussions with the Conservation Authority, they do not want us excavating in the provincially significant wetland to construct a new ditch on private land. And then as well, our next step was to improve the road ditch and stay within the county road on the east side. And there are hydro poles on that side, which you would have to dig beside, and Ontario Hydro now does not let you excavate past their poles. So we would need to put in some culverts to go past the poles. As we did that, and through discussions with the county, they requested us to cross the road on the south side of the furthest pole and then just clean out the ditch on the west side. It wasn't my choice. I would much prefer to have an open channel dug in private property straight from the main drain south to the field. That would function the best and be the cheapest, but through different reasons, we were not allowed to do that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Okay. One more question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Through your mayor to Mr. DeVos. When you're doing some of this work, you're going to apply a grass cover. And some of that is annual ryegrass. And could you please make for sure there's some species of annual ryegrass now that are Roundup ready. And once that gets into the field, the farmer has a really hard time. So I'd appreciate it if you made an effort to make for sure it wasn't Roundup ready. Thank you.
So not Roundup ready.
Yes, there is a couple species that are now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, are there other questions? Seeing none, then the motion before us is that the Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre receives the Colbert Drain Report from Mike DeVos, Esprit Associates, dated June 18th, 2020, and authorizes that the project proceed, and that the Court of Revision will meet on November 25th, 2020, and further that Councillor Arts and Mayor DeVete be appointed along with Amanda Stratton from the City of London Court of Revision to sit as members of the Court of Revision, with Mayor DeVete being the chair. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, Mr. DeVos, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, moving now to the Committee of Adjustment. I would entertain a motion that Council adjourn the regular meeting to sit as Committee of Adjustment under Section 45 of the Planning Act as amended to consider a number of applications. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Scott and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And I'll turn it to the chair, Councillor Silva.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The procedures. Sorry, just a moment. Sorry, I don't have the opening procedures here in front of me. There we go. All right, I will call this public meeting to order. If anyone wishes to receive notification regarding the minor variance or any other planning application being considered tonight, I ask that you please send an email to planning@middlesexcentre.on.ca and indicate in your email which application you would like to receive notice on. Also, please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. The procedure will be the same for each planning application, and the order of procedure shall be as follows. I will explain the purpose and effect of the application. The Secretary Treasurer / Clerk will provide any additional comments received from circulated agencies and the public not included in the planning report, if any. The planner will give an explanation of the application and present the staff report. The applicant and/or their agent has the opportunity to speak to the application. Then any public that have requested to participate in the meeting electronically will be asked for their comments. Public participants will be unmuted and able to speak when called on by the chair. Please ensure that you state your name and address so that your information can be reflected in the minutes. Speaking notes of those who have asked to participate have already been provided to council for their information and consideration. Then the committee may then ask questions of the applicant or staff. I will consider motions regarding the applications. And besides all that, please note that there is a 20-day appeal period from today's date to allow for appeals against the Committee of Adjustments decision, and that if any members of the public or the applicant have any questions about the appeal appeal process, they may contact the clerk, James Hudson. The purpose and effect of application A14-2020, minor variance, is to seek relief from the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2005-005 as it relates to the minimum interior side yard setback and maximum permissible lot covered required in the urban residential first density or UR1 zone. The applicant is requesting a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.4 meters or 4.59 feet on either side of each lot, whereas the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.5 meters or 4.9 feet on one side and 2.5 meters or 8 feet on the other side. The applicant is also requesting a maximum lot coverage of 40% for the main dwelling and all accessory buildings, whereas the maximum lot coverage for the main dwelling is 35% and an additional 3% permitted for accessory buildings. The effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of a single detached dwelling on the lot. All right, so Mr. Hudson, are there any other comments that we haven't been made aware of?
Through the chair, I can confirm we've received no further comments that council is not made aware of within the report. Thank you.
Over to the planner, please.
Yeah, through the chair, Dan Fitzgerald, planner with Middlesex County. I'm representing Middlesex Center today. So I'm just going to share my screen so everyone can see the location map there. So as noted, the application for committee today is with respect to a property that's located at 262 Union Ave in Kamoka, which is requesting a minor variance to reduce the interior side yard setback requirements, as well as increase the maximum permissible site coverage for the main dwelling, as well as any associated accessory buildings for lands located within the urban residential first density zone. And they are intending to construct a single detached dwelling. The subject property is approximately 624 meters squared in area and has an approximate frontage of 15 meters and is located in the Kamoka-Kilwer settlement area on the west side of Union Ave. The lands are currently vacant and are part of a recently approved subdivision application. The lands are bounded by an institutional use to the west, vacant land to the south, an institutional use to the east, and a residential subdivision to the north in the form of single detached dwellings. The lands are designated settlement area in the County of Middlesex official plan, residential in the Middlesex Center official plan, and zoned urban residential first density zone in the Middlesex Center zoning bylaw. The purpose and effect of the application for minor variance, as noted, is to seek relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw as it relates to the minimum interior side yard setbacks, as well as the maximum lot coverage. The applicant seeking a reduction on the interior side yards to 1.4 meters on either side, whereas the bylaw currently requires a 1.5 meter on one side and 2.5 meters on the other. As additionally noted, the applicant is also requesting maximum permission for lot coverage to increase from 35% for the main dwelling and 3% for any accessory buildings to 40% for all structures. No comments have been received with respect to the public during circulation of the application, and no agencies have registered any objections. Staff note that the intent of the applicant is to construct a residential home, which is consistent with the official plan residential designation. Also, the intention of the interior side yard setback requirement in the zoning bylaw is to provide spatial separation as well as access to the property. Staff believe the proposed reduction would not adversely impact spatial separation and access intent of the zoning bylaw. Also, in review of the larger neighborhood, it is noted that existing zoning in close proximity to these lands permits interior side yard setbacks of 1.2 meters. As such, staff generally are of the opinion that the format of development is desirable for the neighborhood. Also, the general intent and purpose of the comprehensive zoning bylaw as it relates to the total lot coverage restrictions in residential areas is to ensure that sufficient amenity space is available on each property. Planning staff is satisfied that the requested relief would not have a significant detrimental impact on the amenity space availability on the subject property. Staff also feel that it would be appropriate, given the applicant is requesting to build a one-story home in this scenario, necessitating the increased footprint to achieve the desired result in size. As noted in the report, staff are of the opinion that the interior side reductions and increase the maximum lot coverage are considered minor in nature and can be considered appropriate development of the subject lands. As the location of the proposed residential dwelling is not anticipated to cause any adverse impact on the surrounding uses. Therefore, staff are of the opinion that the proposal satisfies the Planning Act tests and recommends that minor variance application A14/2020 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant or an agent have anything they'd like to add?
Through the chair, the applicant and agent unfortunately were not able to attend the meeting tonight.
Okay. I don't believe there's any members of the public who wish to speak. No. Anybody on the committee have any questions? Mayor DeVete.
Thank you. Through the chair to our planning department. I have no problem with the request. It's a matter of clarification. The wording in the description says that 40% for the main dwelling and all accessory buildings, which is in total. But the other wording says dwelling 35%, an additional 3% permitted for accessory. We've had applications come and forward to us and ask that I would like to build an accessory building. Now that we're approving 40% in total for main and all accessory, does that mean there is no further opportunity for a future resident to come forward and say, I would like to build an accessory building? Or is the home less than 40% and there is an allowance somehow left for an accessory building? I'm not quite clear. I've not noticed that sort of inclusive language in previous applications. So if you could just clarify, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair to Mayor DeVete, that is a good point. There are different zoning categories, site-specific zoning categories that just blend the accessory building requirement and main dwelling requirement together to a maximum site coverage for all. In this case, the developer, or the homeowner actually wants to build a house that would cover 36% of the lot, which would give them an additional 3% and change to establish any additional accessory buildings on the lands. If they were potentially to exceed or request to exceed, then it would be a situation where they'd have to come back and ask for an additional minor variance to allow for additional lot coverage.
So just to be clear, the amount is recorded. This sort of sticks to the file, and a future council down the road would know that kind of to go more than 4% over, like 36 and 4, would not be allowed without another meeting.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. So it would be, in terms of lot coverage total, it would say 40% for all structures on the lands, including accessory buildings. So if they were to exceed that maximum 40%, then it would necessitate another minor variance on the property.
Okay, thank you. Always learn something at the meetings. So I'm happy to move that if there's no other question. Then thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, there's a recommendation forward. Does anybody want to move the recommended motion? Mayor DeVete and Councillor Heffernan is the seconder. All in favor? That's approved. That's okay. That was it for Committee of Adjustment tonight. So I'd like a motion, if possible, to move out of Committee of Adjustment and into public meetings, please. Councillor Scott and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? That's approved.
Okay, thank you for that, Chair Silva. Members of the public who wish to participate in the public meeting now, remotely by phone, will be required to notify staff in writing before the meeting. That deadline has passed, and so we do have a number of people listed. If there are any questions regarding the applications, they should be directed to the appropriate planners on file. And the order of the meeting tonight is basically the same as we had in the Committee of Adjustment. So the planner will explain the purpose and effect of the application, and then the planner will provide any additional comments that are received from the agencies. I will then ask if the applicant or the agent would like to come forward and speak to the application. Any public that want to speak that have requested permission to do so electronically will be asked for their comments, and then council will ask questions. And then finally, we'll consider motions. I should note that there's a 20-day appeal period from the date of notice of decision to allow for appeals against the council's decision, and that if any members of the public or the applicant have any questions about the appeal process, they may contact our clerk, James Hudson. And if anyone wishes to receive further notification on any of the planning applications being heard, please send an email to planning@middlesexcentre.on.ca requesting further notification, providing your name, mailing address, including postal code, and be advised that any comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. So with that out of the way, the first application for us is Planning 58-2020. Marian Cabral is our planner on this, so I'll ask her to start with the purpose and effect.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So I'm just going to share my screen to bring up the location map. So hopefully everyone can see this now. So the purpose of this report is to provide a recommendation regarding the rezoning application for the portion of 10036 Ilderton Road in Poplar Hill as a result of a condition of consent to create 3 residential lots. The requested rezoning is to change the zone from existing use to a hamlet residential first density exception 1 zone. And this is consistent with the surrounding community, which has the similar zoning or the same zoning. The remnant farm parcel is located outside of the hamlet boundary and will retain its existing zoning, which is existing use or agricultural. So the request for this rezoning is generally supported by the PPS, the county official plan, and the local official plan, since it represents infill development and a rounding out of development within the existing settlement area. Further, the conditionally severed lots does meet the zone standards for the hamlet residential first density exception 1 zone. This application was also circulated to residents in accordance with the Planning Act, and we did not receive any comments. We also circulated this application to agencies and to staff, and no issues or comments were addressed by municipal staff or agencies, including the Conservation Authority. As such, planning staff are satisfied with the rezoning as it is supported by the PPS, the county official plan, and the local official plan. Therefore, this amendment to Hamlet Residential Third Density Exception 1 is recommended to be approved. Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to put my thing on. Thank you for the report, Marian. I will now ask Mr. Linton, would you like to speak to this application?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I would just like to thank Marian Cabral for facilitating the application in a timely manner. And I've read the report and fully accept everything that's in the report. I can answer any questions that anyone may have from here.
Thank you very much. There are no members of the public who've asked to participate, so I'll ask Councillor, are there questions of the applicant or of staff? I don't see any. So in that case, there is a motion before us as read by our planner. I will entertain a motion to accept that. Councillor Scott and Councillor Arts, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Liddon. Good night.
Take care.
We're moving on to the second item, for the zoning bylaw amendment for Clear Skies, and that is again Ms. Cabral. Do you want to take that away, Marian?
Thank you. And again, I will just upload the location map and share it with everybody. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see this location map, and I do apologize that it is a little bit cluttered right now, just given the amount of development in the area. So the purpose of this report is to provide information only regarding this rezoning request for a portion of the lands known as Phase 3 of the Clear Skies subdivision. This request is broken into two parts, essentially. The first part will rezone the existing medium density block from urban residential third density exception 7 to urban residential third density exception 11. And you'll be familiar with the urban residential third density exception 11 zone, as this was previously approved by council for the smaller medium density block in the Clear Sky subdivision as well. The second component of this rezoning is to also add a zone or create essentially a split zone by retaining the urban residential first density exception 29 zone that permits single detached dwellings, and add a new site specific urban residential third density zone to permit street townhouses. This would provide the applicant flexibility and respond to market demand to either provide single detached dwellings or townhouses as they permit. So please note that this split zoning or the requested zoning is only applicable to the lots that are abutting the medium density block to the northeast end, and it would not be amending any zones in other areas of the subdivision. So this applicant has provided draft site plans for discussions only, and they are attached to the planning report. So based on the site plan, the requested zoning would permit medium density development, such as seen in the site plan. You'll see in the medium density block, 72 units. There will be a single internal road. Very similar to other developments within the Clear Sky subdivision, where there'd be a single car driveway and a sunken garage that will not project beyond the front face of the main wall. Each townhouse would be approximately 2 stories in height, and the proposed condominium design allows for pedestrian access to Street A of the subdivision and the rest of the draft plan approved subdivision, including the parks and recreational space. 10 visitor parking spaces are included. And amenity space and stormwater management facilities is also proposed in the center of this development. Further, the lots along Street A, which are subject to that new split zoning, would consist of either the 22 single detached units that are currently permitted on site, or up to 36 townhouses with the requested zoning in place. All units are proposed to have a garage, to have a single driveway and sunken garage that will not project beyond the front face of that wall. And any townhouses will be 2 stories in height, and blocks would contain a maximum of 6 dwelling units. It's important to note that these units along Street A would be considered street townhouses or freehold townhouses and not part of a condominium. And they do have the ability to be sold to future buyers and not leased. To speak to the rezoning applications themselves, the rezoning for that medium density block addresses several standards, including lot area, lot frontage, lot depth, side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks, lot coverage, floor area density, and the outdoor amenity area space. Further, the new site-specific zone for those lots along Street A would address permitted uses to permit the street townhouse, lot area, lot frontage, lot depth, side yard setback, rear yard setbacks, lot coverage, density, and outdoor amenity area. So the notice of this application was circulated to residents and agencies in accordance with the Planning Act. At the time of writing this report, I did receive a few comments from neighboring property owners. One property owner did have comments about surface water drainage from the eastern portion of the subdivision of their onto their property, and that the development of the overall subdivision should address the drainage of surface water. I have provided these comments to the Public Works and Engineering Department, as well as to the applicant to address, and it is my understanding that this was addressed through the draft plan approval for the entire subdivision. Further, another resident had commented on the proposed rezoning, as it is a significant increase in density and land coverage, and there is minimal green space in the site-specific zone for the medium density block. Staff were also circulated with these applications and had no concerns with the proposed rezonings, but would provide detailed comments through site plan review. Again, this matter is before council for information purposes to solicit feedback from council and from the public, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. I see that we have Ms. Zunti speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Marion for her work on this file. We appreciate her assistance through this. Just wanted to make a couple of comments. One of the reasons that we wanted to rezone the internal block to the UR3-11 zone was to allow for the future potential of vacant land condominiums, which is how we are developing the block to the south. Rather than going through a new site-specific zone, we proposed using the same zone as was used there, so that there's not just more and more and more special provision zones. So that is the reason why that one is proposed as it is. So the specific regulations in it may not necessarily be needed with respect to the density and so on. As noted, that site plan is conceptual. We would be going through a site plan approval process in the future, but the main intent of that zone is to permit the vacant land condominiums. And when the way the municipality interprets vacant land condominiums is based on each individual unit. And so that's why we require the increased coverage and so on, because it's based on a unit rather than the overall multifamily block, as is the interpretation in some other municipalities. With respect to the other zone, as indicated, we are looking to have some additional flexibility. We are finding that there is more and more demand for street townhouses from an affordability standpoint. So by adding that zone to the single family zoning that is already in place, that gives us the flexibility to do either street townhouses or single family houses or combinations of them. So we're hoping that that will add to the affordability aspects that may occur in the neighborhood. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Okay, thank you for that. We have no one from the public participating, so I will now turn to the council. Are there questions of the applicant? Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor, I have a few questions. First of all, what is the proposed price range that you're thinking that would make these houses affordable?
Well, the street townhouses, we don't know exactly, but they would be more affordable than single family houses.
Okay. All right.
I expect that they're still probably going to be in the $400,000 range. That's what I believe I had heard from the builder, but I don't know that exactly.
And the houses on the interior in their condos?
Because we don't actually have we don't have a builder yet for the internal area. So as I mentioned, that plan is a conceptual plan. It could change. It could become one-story condos, or a mix of 1 and 2 story. So I don't know what those ones will be yet. We're just looking for the flexibility so that when we do proceed, we've got the approvals in place for the vacant land condominium approach.
Okay, can I keep going?
That's it.
Okay, so I'm glad to hear that some little bit more affordable housing is being built anyway. However, what was the density before? Because it looks as though you've got 72 on the inside and then 36 street townhouses, which is 108 on 8 acres. That's pretty dense. So I'm just concerned, what was it before that we're increasing to? What was approved initially?
I would have to refer to Marion. I wasn't involved in the original approval, so I can't recall offhand.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Heffernan, just looking at my staff report on page 9, the approved density within the existing UR3-7 zone is 30 units per hectare. What's proposed in the UR3-11 zone is 45 units per hectare.
Okay, so I guess that brings up the next question is, so the doubling, or actually more than doubling the density, is this taken into account with our water and wastewater requirements? Has the Thames Valley School Board been contacted for the effect on the growth there? And yeah, it's just that I'm just wondering with this new proposal, what these additional costs and what the additional effects are going to be on that.
I can respond to the.
Go ahead.
I can respond to the servicing question. One of the requirements for our application was to submit a report confirming that servicing capacity was there. And so Stantec did provide that. When they did the original servicing analysis for the subdivision, they advised that it was based on some standard numbers that are used. And so the density that they had actually used for their calculations for servicing in the past is higher than what has been actually proposed.
Thank you.
But before I move to any other further council questions, I've been advised that Mr. Eakins has joined the call now, and he's a member of the public. So I'll ask Mr. Eakin to take the microphone then.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. My invitation's at 7 o'clock. Sorry if I'm late.
Not to worry.
So this may be duplicate, but I've spent some time going through the stormwater management requirements with the Ministry of Environment, looked at all the calculations that are entailed in there. It's a very extensive document. So my question is, the stormwater calculations and engineering would have been done with the original density. So will it have to be increased? Will it have to be reworked, re-engineered, enlarged? So I don't know if there's an
answer. Through Madam Mayor to Mr. Eakins, when we circulated the applications to the Public Works and Engineering departments, they didn't have any concerns with stormwater management, though I will defer that question to Rob Cascaden if he's available to answer.
Yep. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we are. Yep.
Okay, so yes, through the mayor. So Marion's correct, and it's a very, very good question. With the increased density, you're right, we can expect an increase in runoff. What the consultant can do, they can look at the original design, see if there was essentially enough buffer in there to allow for the increased density. If they run the analysis and find that there's not, then what we would require is on-site controls within the condominium site to bring those runoff levels down to what had been originally designed for the stormwater management pond.
Understood, but there's more than just the townhouse complex there's two parcels here. So I'm no engineer, but I did kind of fool with it, and it's a very significant difference. And oddly, it also goes to storm runoff includes snowstorms and ice requirements and design. So whatever was originally designed, including the catchment system, the lack of percolation capacity of groundwater, there's going to be a significant impact. So I'd like that confirmed before anybody goes ahead. Yes. So anyway, on to the next one. It might be you again, Rob. Looking at, and again, I'm no engineer, but the water tower was constructed in such a way as to give emergency relief in the event of a water supply interruption for firefighting and people's consumption in the case of an interruption. The tower, while being relatively new, is also expandable. So my question is, it will reduce, I think we're approximately 6 to 7 days water supply in the event of a water main break coming to the town. What's the increase, especially now that you're intensifying the population, if you would, of this area?
So sorry, your question is, so what is the decrease in that time?
Well, I'm speaking to hard services, both water and sewage, because with the sewage, the plant was expanded, but it was expanded presumably based on single family dwellings, not high density. So is there capacity there? And does the water tower need to be enlarged?
So I guess first the water tower. So no, it does not need to be enlarged at this time. So when it was built, it would not have been built for only the existing. It would have been built with growth in mind. That's something that as we continue to grow, we would monitor. We have a model of the water system, and we are planning on undertaking a master servicing plan next year, which would again, we'll look at updates to that system and forecasting for when we would need expansion of that. On the sanitary side, there is currently capacity in the wastewater facility, in part because when Sifton would have looked at the Clear Skies property, it would have looked at the property in its entirety. So because they've increased the density in this one area, that actually doesn't mean that the density for the overall development will exceed what was allowed for. Kind of as Ms. Zunti had referred to, that when the engineers do their initial calculations for the sizing of the sewers within the development, they would have assumed the 30 units per hectare across the board. But typically what we see is that a single family residential is quite a bit lower than that. So although this area is higher density, it'll be offset by the areas that fall below the threshold that they had used. So I guess my answer is that overall, the impact is likely to be very negligible, but that is something that when they go through their detailed design, that we will ask those questions and ask them to confirm.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the water tower, and there's going to be an impact on the amount of water available in the case of an outage. So like it was 6 days, I think it was originally designed for 7 to 8. It's down to 6. So what's this going to take us to? At a certain point, it becomes a concern.
No, you're correct, and like I said, that would be monitored, but we're not going to put an expansion on until we get down to a certain threshold of the number of days that there's coverage, right? And then we would go and put the expansion and bring that coverage back up. I mean, if you look at the increase in density here, what that means as far as the load on the water system, it'll be fairly small compared to the overall system within Ilderton.
Well, I understand that. I'd still like to understand what the timeline is, how much water in rough terms is there stored, you know?
Yeah, and I can't give you specifics right now, but certainly if you want to contact me directly, I can probably dig those numbers up through you with my water manager.
Okay, I think I know him. The next one is maybe the most important one of the bunch I've got here. Now, I'll preface it by I understand that the diagram is marked for discussion purposes only. So that's what we're going to have. I have to work on the diagram that was provided. I have no other alternative. There is completely insufficient parking, which is a common thing in condominiums. I should know because before coming to Ilderton, I was the president of a condo court. And I listened to area residents constantly complaining about parking from my development. I agreed with them. It was unacceptable what was going on. And ultimately, that would happen here if that was built as designed. So, you know, we don't have a parking problem and we don't want to start having a parking problem. So there needs to be significantly additional parking in place to make this even doable. The other thing I'll say about parking is, you know, you tend to forget about snow piling. So how this is designed, you can't possibly pile the snow from those streets in the parking spot. Should be down to no visitor parking. There's limited from the design, they're all single car garages. That might change, but at the moment they're single car garages. And I can tell you from experience, it doesn't work. People, the developer at the time told us, well, people know how many cars they can park when they move here. Well, guess what? They didn't. So I think this is a critical issue, and it could change the complexity of the whole town. I mean, I don't want cars parked over our road. As I say, there's no parking problem now. I don't want there to be one. So can this be taken away to again, like this is a rough draft, I suppose, of the development, but it's completely unacceptable the way it is. So I don't know who I'm really talking to on this issue, but.
Well, Mr. Eakin, the comments are noted, and this goes into the file. This is we're receiving this information, this document for information tonight. So those questions will be asked and answered.
Okay,
The
great.
conversation doesn't necessarily happen here tonight, that all of the questions are answered in full.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
And to continue on,
yes.
All I can do is work with the plan I was given. And it's almost impossible for one of our garbage trucks to go through that development. It is impossible. Like the road's relatively narrow and there are really tight bends. And while I understand this is not, it's for discussion purposes, like, I'd like to know what it is they're actually building, because there is no way one of our garbage trucks would go through that development.
So I can speak to that one. So the radiuses that are used on the turns do have to meet a minimum size to comply for emergency services. So the radius has to be a minimum 12 meters for fire trucks. If Blue Water Recycling, or whoever the contractor may be at the time, so right now it's Blue Water Recycling that deals with waste management. This is a private site internally, so they have the option of either contracting to take the garbage or leaving it with the condo board to find alternate arrangements. Ideally, I think residents would like to see them in there. It makes sense. But they would review that site plan, and Sifton can go to them to have a review done and let them know whether it's serviceable in the fashion that that's laid out.
Okay. The next question is around an incident that occurred with the existing expansion into the Clear Skies area. Our street was without power for several hours when Hydro connected the new development, the existing new development, that's the part that's already been built. I wasn't too happy about that. We have residents, this is a high water table area. I think that's roundly acknowledged. Some pumps, most of us have battery backup, but you don't want to test that for too long. So I'd like some sort of assurance that won't happen again. That's just common sense, I think. We don't need extended power outages. And then it also, I'm not faulting anybody, but trying to make it clear to Hydro One that there was a power outage turned into be a little bit more trouble than it was worth. Like they almost were disputing the power was out, but anyway. So I don't know who can take that or find out what happened. I mean, it's the existing developer. They must have known about it. Really prefer that doesn't happen again.
Okay, and is there any other question that you want to add in, or is that the list?
No, I've got more to go.
Okay,
Okay, anyone who lives here, and I understand this is an issue with every small town in Ontario, but the speeds and the OPP are doing a commendable job handing out tickets relentlessly. But southbound on Hyde Park, cars are often traveling at 100 kilometers an hour, even though it's a 50 zone. Northbound, they're accelerating. They're probably at 70 or 80 as they pass Maplewood. With the additional road entering that intersection now and higher density than originally proposed, there will be significantly more traffic. It's an accident waiting to happen. So I'm thinking that at the minimum, a four-way stop would be required. Just, it's a safety issue. I mean, I could tell you from experience. If I pull on, especially going southbound, it's a good thing my SUV has twin turbos in it, because they come up on you so quickly. And then sometimes they are doing a speed limit, so it's a judgment call. But I would think a stop sign at minimum would be required. Page 2. This is just curiosity. I suppose the developer can tell me to go pound salt, but I'm kind of interested about what market or demographic this townhouse complex is aimed at. And I'd just like to know that, like, is this kind of a retirement environment or what have you? Because, you know, good planning equals good communities. And in this case, it's critical. Just as I mentioned before, I was the president of a condo corporation. The typical person in that corporation relied heavily on public infrastructure, such as buses specifically. And we don't have any, nor do I foresee anything in the immediate future. So I'm just kind of curious as to what demographic is this townhouse complex aimed at? I guess they're not obligated to tell us, but it would be kind of nice. If it's family oriented, that's one issue. If it's retirement oriented, that's another. Or if they don't really care, they're just going to build them and let whoever come. That's good too. So I don't know if we could get an answer to that.
Mr. Eakin?
Yes.
The 10 minutes, we're moving well beyond the 10 minutes that's allocated. If you want to wrap it up, or you could submit all of your comments to the planning department.
Okay.
All of it's included. If you just have another one or something, you said page 2, and I have the impression that you've got a number of comments that you want to make or information you want to pass on.
Well, I think you can see where I'm going here overall. I have more questions, but they all run along the same gambit. I fear that and just to close the discussion, I fear that when a project is proposed, and I mean, there were big signs up, I took them at their word that these were single family residents. And then all of a sudden there's project creep and major changes made to the project. I just feel a lot of work that was done has never gone back and looked at again. And these things like extended power outages are impacting the existing residents. It's not right, especially when it's just kind of swept under the rug. And that's what I'm worried about, is some of the planning that was originally undertaken, is it all being reviewed, or is it just sort of we'll deal with it as it happens? So, and I think that's the gist of a lot of my questions tonight.
And that's a good summary then at the end. Thank you. Pretty well. So do you know how to apply? I gave the address before, but the comments can be submitted electronically?
Yep, that's fine.
You've got that. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. That was.
If I could just, Rob, I have no idea what your phone number is or how I get a hold of you.
If you submit some comments electronically, I think Marion can probably give you my contact information.
Okay, I'm just actually looking specific to the water. I'd like to know the impact on water reserves on that tower. So it's the only question I really have for you.
Sure, you can find my contact on the website as well.
Super.
Okay, thank you. Going back to council, we had questions from the ward councillor. Is there anyone else who wants anything clarified? Councillor Silva.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to go back to the affordability issue. And regardless of the fact that the official plan is under review right now, looks like part 5.2.1, paragraph G, does actually have a number here citing that for ownership housing, the least expensive, through the official plan, we require that 20% of all housing be affordable. In case of ownership housing, the least expensive is considered to be housing for which the purchase price is at least 10% below the average purchase price of a resale unit in the regional market area. There's a 2005 figure in here, which is completely irrelevant now. But the benchmark figure obviously will change over time. So back over to the madam from Sifton, do you have any clue whether the proposed housing that you say you've heard will start in the 400s, does it meet, do you think it meets this threshold right now? And if not, will you make sure that it does?
I can't really answer that because I haven't been dealing with the builder directly. As mentioned, one of the reasons we're trying to do the street townhousing is because it, as attached housing, it is generally more affordable than single family housing. What the actual price point is, I don't know. And it's to some extent is dependent on exactly when they are able to build it, because prices keep on going up over time. We still have to get through the engineering stage for this phase and get the roads constructed and everything else like that. So they won't be able to actually start building this housing until probably sometime towards the middle to latter part of next year would be my guess. And then the internal block, as I mentioned, that is at this point in time conceptual. It's quite possible that there will be more units in there, and that that could be also a little bit more affordable. But I don't know what the numbers are. It'll be very dependent on who builds and what they build, because as I mentioned before, it could end up being a single family rather than, or not single family, single story rather than 2-story. So it's something I don't really have an answer for, unfortunately.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate because here we are in the planning process and this is part of the official plan.
It's very dependent on what our builders, because Sifton is not necessarily the builder on the site. We sell our lots and our blocks to a lot of other local builders. So it's also very dependent on what the builder chooses to build. And at this point in time, I don't know exactly who the builders will be, particularly for the internal block. And so I don't know what their intent is yet.
Right, but I guess part of the biggest, like, it doesn't cost 3 times more to build a house now than it did in 2005. It costs a little bit more, of course, but from my understanding and doing all sorts of research for the last few months is that it's land prices that are really driving up the cost, right? Whereas you could probably buy my lot for, $100,000 a little while ago. Now it'd be $250 or $300 just to get the land. So considering how long Sifton has actually owned this land and how little you would have, comparatively speaking, Sifton would have paid for it 10, 15 years ago compared to what the land would cost today in order to purchase. Is that where the price increase is coming from? Is Sifton charging $200 per lot as opposed to $100, despite, comparatively speaking, how little Sifton paid for this land?
I would actually have to follow up with our vice president because I don't deal with the actual sale of lots or the land. I do the planning and I get the approvals for the zoning bylaw amendments and so on, but I don't actually deal myself with the builders and the sale of the land. So I don't have a very good answer for you, unfortunately. That's something that I can find out more from if you wish, but I don't have an answer for that myself.
I do wish.
We actually should stick to the content here that we're just the application.
We have costs. We have a benchmark here in the official plan. This is part of the planning process.
Yeah, this isn't an affordable planning. This isn't an affordable unit. It is. They said it was more affordable than single family.
We require all households, all new housing.
Okay, so is there a question here that hasn't been asked or answered?
At this time, no. But I'm saying I really look forward to an answer on that, because if that's where that price potential butting up against the official plan is coming from, then something could be done about that at Sifton's level.
Another question?
No, thank you.
Any other questions on the application here? No. Okay. So this is to be received as information. There are two recommendations that you have before you. Is there a mover and a seconder for this application? Councillor Arts and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor of receiving? And that's carried. The next item is an application for a draft plan of condominium to 10.3. And again, we would ask Marion Cabral to please present the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, I'll share my screen just to pull up a location map for a reference. So hopefully everyone can see the location map for the Palumbo condominium development in Kilworth. This is specifically related to block 3230 and file 39T MC CDM 1901 that was filed by Palumbo Developments Inc. So as you can see in the location map, this project is located on the south side of Glendon Drive. This application came before council in September 2019 for a public meeting, and more recently in September 2020 when council approved the rezoning and removal of the holding symbols. The plan of condominium is a vacant land condo that would permit 68 townhouse units on the site. This would front onto Glendon Drive as well as onto Doan Drive and have a single access onto Doan Drive only. The applicant has satisfied the technical requirements by the municipality, agencies, and staff, and staff are currently drafting a site plan agreement that will be before council in sooner rather than later, and that's currently underway. Notice of the applications associated with this development, including the rezoning and the plan of condominium, were circulated to residents within the area in accordance with the Planning Act, and no comments were received by staff. Additionally, this notice was circulated to utilities and agencies and the county for comments, and their comments have been reflected within the site plan agreement or the draft plan approval conditions, or both. So 21 conditions have been included as part of the draft plan approval and are included as part of the attachment to this report. Special conditions include implementation of the urban design brief that was provided and prepared for by the applicant, and that addresses garages, fencing, and the facade design. Conditions also include the implementation of environmental noise assessment into the development and the design of the property. Approval of stormwater management and the sediment and erosion control measures, as well as requiring that all external infrastructure services be in place prior to any development. So staff are satisfied is consistent with the PPS policies of the local and county official plan. As a result, planning staff recommend that council pass the resolution recommending draft plan approval for the subject land, subject to the conditions for a period of up to 3 years, and that it be forwarded for consideration by Middlesex County Council. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for the report, Marion. I have listed Mr. Palumbo, Ms. Sienkiewicz, and Mr. McGuffin. Are you online? Yes, I see. I can't see who's there. I see a body.
Sorry, Benita, we can't hear you.
So we'll just see delegate we're having difficulty hearing them. Okay. Anita, we have on the line. That's Anita. We have her. Okay. So is either Jay or Marco there? Oh, it was. Okay. We do not have Jay or Marco on the line. Should we come back?
Madam Mayor, we just have Benita on the line, but we can't hear her. So I don't know if anyone else.
I think she's gone now. Oh no, there she is back again. I could move to ask council then if they have questions, and we'll move on, and then we'll come back and ask proponent to speak. Okay. Are there questions then for the planner? Yes, Councillor Heffernan, please.
Through the mayor to the planner, Marion, I think there was a comment in there about the noise study was not completed yet. Can you just elaborate on that or clarify that?
Absolutely. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Heffernan. The noise study was under review by municipal staff in September, especially we were going back and forth with the applicant to just address some minor concerns and work towards site plan approval. I guess Rob is on the line. I can ask him to address any other outstanding concerns, but I believe most of them have been addressed to date.
Yes, through the mayor. Yes, the concerns have been addressed. We had gone through a peer review process and had some back and forth between the reviewer and the developer and ourselves, and the issues have been resolved, and so that's now complete.
Okay, more add-ons? No? I think if Marion or staff can answer the questions, and when we can keep addressing those, if there aren't any. I'm not sure what the plan, I mean. Do you want to try again, Benita?
I'm not sure if you can hear me.
I hear something, yes, I hear. Can you increase the volume on your machine, on your iPad or laptop?
It's maxed, it's up.
Oh, it's max, I heard that. Okay. Is there anything that you'd like to add, Benita?
There isn't, they're just here for questions.
Oh, just here for questions. Okay, I heard that. Okay, does anybody want to ask questions of the proponent? Okay, I don't see any questions, Benita, so I'm loath to do this, but I guess, yeah, we'll just move on. Yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, we'll take a vote then, because we're not making, we're, sorry. Oh, they want to come into the meeting. I just, sorry. That's okay. Should we just take a vote then? Yes. Okay. Okay. Well, the motion before us is that Council of Middlesex be advised that Middlesex Centre is recommending a draft plan approval for the property as described, and it's subject to the conditions for a 3-year elapsed period. So if we have a mover for this, Councillor Silva and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that's carried. Isn't technology great? Okay, moving to 10.4. This is another consent. We have Yulia Rodionova on behalf of the proponents at 13 Mile Road. And I believe this time it is, before I say Dan. Yes, it is Dan. I thought it was. Dan, are you there?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm here. This is me.
Okay. If you'd like to take us through the purpose and the comments.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you very much.
So I'll share my screen so everyone can see the location map there. So the application that we have before us here tonight is with respect to a proposed surplus farmhouse dwelling severance. It's to an existing farm residence to achieve a farm consolidation. So the owners of the properties are farmers. They own a farming operation, and they are seeking to sever the residents from the lands in order to sell the surplus residential home. The subject property as a whole is approximately 41.1 hectares and is located on the south side of 13 Mile Road, on the southeast corner of the intersection at 13 Mile Road and Hyde Park Road. The lands are designated agricultural according to the municipality's official plan, and are also zoned agricultural A1 zone according to the comprehensive zoning bylaw. The applicant, as noted, is requesting to sever the existing residents from the farm parcel with an approximate frontage of 73 meters on 13-mile road and an area of approximately 0.76 hectares or 1.8 acres. The lands would contain the existing single detached dwelling, maintain private access from 13-mile road, and also maintain on-site septic system and well. The lands proposed to be retained for the agricultural purpose, or the remnant lands, are proposed to have a frontage of approximately 538 meters on 13-mile road and an area of approximately 100.5 acres or 40.68 hectares. The lands are agricultural land and crop production. They are not serviced and they maintain their own access. The accessory building that was shown in the plans on the conceptual severance sketch has been removed from site by the applicant. The surrounding land uses predominantly within the area are agricultural in nature. Generally speaking, provincial policy, the county official plan and local official plan permit surplus farm dwelling severances as long as the municipality is satisfied that a farm consolidation is occurring. The lands contain either municipal or private servicing. The dwelling is habitable and constructed prior to 1999. No new residence is permitted on the to be established on the remnant lands, and the access to the lands is maintained. As identified in the report, planning staff, as well as internal agencies and groups are satisfied that the criteria of the proposed severance of surplus farmhouse residents on the lands has been met or can be met, appropriately addressed through conditions of consent. Also, a notice of the application has been circulated to agencies as well as property owners in accordance with Planning Act. We did not receive any comments with respect to this proposed severance, and all internal comments as well as agency comments were supportive. Based on the above, staff recommend that the consent to sever application be approved subject to conditions outlined in the planning report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that report. I'll ask, is the agent present to comment or present? There you are.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, great. So Dan was really helpful in a consultation process, and my clients have followed all the recommendations. They initially wanted to have a bigger piece of land severed, and then they limited the severed piece of land to less than 2 acres, and all the utilities allocated on the land. The building was inspected and was deemed habitable. The necessary repairs were made. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much. I will now ask if there are any members of the public. I don't think so. And then council. Are there members of council with questions? Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the applicant, is there an opportunity to make this lot a little smaller at 1.8 acres? It's getting on the large size. We prefer to see them around 1 acre. Is there an opportunity to reduce the size of this lot? If not, what is the reason why it can't be reduced?
When we initially started the consultation, we were advised that the lot has to be less than 2 acres. And so we made every possible effort to reduce the size to accommodate the existing sewage and other utilities. So there is not much space left around the sewage, and the hydro line is completely on the lot. I don't know if Dan can elaborate on this.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Brennan. So what I would say is, of course, there's always opportunities to decrease the lot area beyond what is currently proposed. It could be up to council's consideration to either squeeze the lot on either sides. In this particular case, if you were to squeeze the lands, I believe it would be to on the west side or east side of the property. You would necessitate the replacement of a buried hydro line, which is possible as a condition of the consent application, to move it over closer to the driveway lane that comes in. Also, the location of the home obviously being pushed back so far from the road is basically why you're seeing a lot that is so large. The home itself is 96, I believe, meters from the existing road allowance. which is obviously a very limiting factor in terms of lot area size. Also, we generally try to keep lots rectangular in shape, I guess. The inclusion of the septic bed, which is required under OBC standards at the back of the property, is as far over as the property line can go at the back. That's not to say that council could recommend moving, like recommending a flag shape at the back to pull the line over and then come out at the back. Just generally speaking, we try to maintain rectangular shapes, but that is also possible as well to consider.
To add on?
Just if you look at the cultivated edge of the field on the west side, I guess it is, the lot lines beyond that. So you're taking in part of the field that's being cultivated. You could have brought the line back inside that line. The hydro line could have came down and in closer to the driveway, which would have taken that B part off where it goes out at the top. And I guess my third comment would be some houses just aren't suitable to be severed when they're that far back from the road. So if we can't reduce the lot size, maybe this is one that can't be severed. Thank you.
Other questions from council? Seeing none, I guess then we can entertain a motion. We have, where did it go? Oh, here it is. So the motion has, I think, 13 conditions, and it was read by our planner. If I could have a mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Silva, Councillor Arts, all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Moving to 10.5. Consent for Cortan Farm. We have Dan again to present the report, please, and then we'll move to the other presenters.
Yes, so thank you, Mayor DeVitt, and to all members of council. So the file that we have here before us is with respect again to a surplus farmhouse dwelling severance proposal. It is meant to achieve a farm consolidation. So the owners of the lands intend, are existing farming operation, and they're seeking to sever the residents for the surplus or for the purpose of disposing the house. Cortain Farms Limited owns a house on another parcel, farm parcel of lands, and as such, this residence is deemed surplus to their current needs. The subject property as a whole is a 62.59 hectare farm parcel, which is located on the east side of Clark Road, as shown here. The lands are designated agricultural according to the municipality's official plan, and zoned agricultural A1 zone according to the Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw. The applicant is requesting to sever the existing residence from the farm parcel with an approximate frontage of 78.59 meters on Clark Road and an area of approximately 1.7 acres or 0.69 hectares. The lands would contain a single detached dwelling, a detached accessory structure or quonset, a pool, and a private access to Clark Road, as well as a well and septic system. The lands proposed to be retained for agricultural purposes are proposed to have a frontage of approximately 600 meters or 1,970 feet on 15-mile road in an area of approximately 152.9 acres or 61.9 hectares. The lands are agricultural land and crop production. They are not serviced and would be required to maintain their own access. The applicant is proposing to remove all structures from the remnant farmlands. Surrounding land uses are predominantly agricultural in nature. And generally speaking, to achieve provincial policy requirements for the proposed severance, the applicant has also proposed a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the proposed severed lands from the agricultural A1 zone to a surplus residential zone, which recognizes the residential use and the reduced parcel size. The retained farmland is proposed to be rezoned from the agricultural A1 zone to an agricultural no residence A3 zone in order to prohibit the establishment of a future house. So everyone can see there. Generally, the provincial policy, the county official plan, and the local official plan permit surplus farmhouse dwelling severances as long as the municipality is satisfied that a farm consolidation is occurring, the lands contain either municipal or private servicing, the dwelling is habitable and constructed prior to 1999, no new residence is permitted to be established on the remnant lands, and access to the lands is maintained. As identified in the report, planning staff are satisfied that the criteria of the proposed severance of a surplus farm, residence on the lands have been met or can be appropriately addressed through conditions of consent. Notice of the application has been circulated to agencies as well as property owners in accordance with the Planning Act. We did not receive any comments from the public, and all comments from internal agencies and groups have been incorporated into the planning conditions. Based on the above, staff recommend that the consent be approved subject to conditions outlined in the planning report. And additionally, staff also recommend the proposed zoning bylaw amendment be approved and implementing bylaw be forwarded to council once the approved deposited reference plan has been provided. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. I have noted here that we are going to have Ms. Rosser, who's an agent for the proponent, and we also have the owner, Michelle Cortan. Is either the applicant or the agent here? We can see you, but we don't hear anything yet.
Do you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, good. We can't hear Barb though.
No. Did you want to speak to us first before your agent, or would you prefer to wait?
No, let Barb speak first.
Okay. See if she can get connected.
Can you hear me, Your Worship?
Yes. Loud and
okay. Excellent. Good evening. I'm Barb Rosser, planning consultant retained by Cortan Farms Limited and agent for this application. I have reviewed the planning report and share the opinion that the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan as well as the Middlesex Centre official plan, and would comply with your zoning bylaw subject to appropriate conditions. So we're in support of the planner's report. I went through a significant exercise along with the owner in consultation with your planner to come up with an appropriately dimensioned severed parcel in this case, and would just point out that it actually a fair bit of land not currently cultivated will become cultivated with the removal that is proposed and now would be required as a result of the conditions once the buildings are removed. So there's a fair bit of area that shows on the severance drawing actually that is not currently shows as not cultivated, but it will become cultivated once the buildings are removed. And the same is true to the south. You can see that dotted line that shows the edge of the cultivated field. And so there are some areas that are not currently cultivated, but very likely will become part of the cultivated field. So there's virtually no cultivated area that's included in the severed parcel. There's a tiny little bit at the southeast corner, but considering everything else, I think that's probably not significant. On the north side, we have a row of mature maple trees that forms the northerly boundary. And of course, in the northeast corner is the well that serves the house. That's a apparently a very good drilled well. It's about 200 feet deep. And then we have the septic area, and there's a hydro pole on the south, just inside the south lot line. So those were essentially the constraints that applied in this case. And we ended up with a quite a suitable lot area at 0.6718.9 square meters. And that translates to 1.66 acres. So I think that's certainly quite appropriate for this size of, or for this type of lot that is always constrained by existing features on the property, particularly existing servicing. So, Your Worship, we hope that that you'll see fit to support the planner's report, and we're prepared to fulfill the conditions expeditiously.
Thank you for that report. Are there any members of the council that would like to ask questions? I'll work my way down. We'll go Deputy Mayor, Councillor Silva.
Through you, Madam Chair, to our planner. I see on the diagram there's a lot of buildings to be removed. There's one metal clad barn and one concrete silo that's not showing to be removed. And there's a metal clad Quonset barn inside the severed lot that isn't going to be removed. Can you explain to me why those aren't being removed, please?
Yeah, through the chair to Deputy Mayor. So with respect to the metal Quonset that's inside the proposed severance, so there is a condition, as condition number 14 on the planner's report, that requires the metal Quonset building to be reduced to such size as would comply with the zoning requirements of the bylaw. So that's something that generally speaking, as an accessory building would be permitted as long as it's reduced to an appropriate size to maintain on the lands. And then with respect to all of the other buildings on the lands, my understanding from the client was that, from the applicant, was that all other buildings will be removed from the remnant farm parcel.
So you're saying even the barn furthest from the lot, it says metal clad barn and then concrete silo. All the rest have a to be removed sign on them. This one does not, but it is going to be removed, is it?
Through the chair, maybe the applicant can clarify that.
Yes, we would like to retain that building for a storage purpose only, if possible, and the silo will likely be coming down.
Through you, Madam.
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor. So I was working under the understanding that all the existing buildings on the remnant farm parcel will be removed. There is a condition that's added. It's condition number 11, as requested by the chief building official, that states that the severed dwelling be confirmed to meet MDS requirements. So if there are any concerns with that building, housing livestock, it would not be able to based on that MDS requirement.
Right. So the water has been disconnected from that barn, as well as hydro. It's just strictly for storage.
And Your Worship, if I could add to that, it certainly would be a suitable option to require a change of use permit stipulating storage only for that building, if that would be helpful to council.
Yeah, I would think there needs to be something put in place that the building would be rendered not use for livestock, that it could be turned into a storage shed, but there would probably have to be some modifications made so that livestock could not be kept in that building.
Did I misunderstand about the arable land being increased?
Yeah, I guess they're going to work between the barn and the lot.
Okay, Councillor Silva, you have the floor.
Thank you. So Deputy Mayor Brennan asked my question about the barn, but I want to follow up on that and ask, what is a suitable size? Because right now that barn is just as big as the house and the frame garage put together. And considering SR zoning and the restrictions thereof, I would imagine that the maximum size would be much smaller than the current size of the barn.
Through the chair to Councillor Silva, sorry, are you referring to the metal quanza that's shown on the severance plan?
Yes.
Within the severance plan, okay.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a really good question. So the maximum size permission for an accessory building in the SR zone is 165 meters squared. So the applicant, as a condition of the consent, would have to reduce the building to that maximum 165 meters squared, which you can imagine will be much smaller than it currently is.
And if I could add that, Your Worship, the applicant and owner understands that there will be a significant reduction in the size of that building in order to fulfill the condition.
Okay, I want to pick up on something Mayor DeVete said off mic. The proponents say they want to keep that other metal-clad barn within the retained lands along, regardless of whether the concrete silo comes down. But there was a mention earlier of expanding the land to be cultivated. So is it your plan that you're going to, I guess, stop on the eastern side of that barn, or are you going to go right around it, or what's going on there?
Yeah,
Your Worship, if I go ahead. No, John, you go ahead. You're the one that will be working the land.
Yeah, we would work right up to the edge of the barn, the storage barn that's proposed. And obviously no further because we can't drive to the barn. And the rest of the yard is cemented at this point. So that would be probably get removed as well.
And if I could add to that, Your Worship, the area not now cultivated goes a substantial distance off the northeast corner of the proposed severed parcel. So regardless of needing to work around this shed that would be for storage, there's a considerable area, possibly in the area of an acre, that would be, that is not currently cultivated and would very likely become cultivated once the buildings are removed and it's available.
That's fine, but I don't like ending up in a planning meeting where the planner is surprised by a statement that the applicant makes. So, all right, I'm good.
Councillor Arts, I think you were next.
Through your Madam Mayor to Dan, I had basically the same questions that Deputy Mayor Brennan had, that I want to make sure there's no livestock in that building. And as far as, yeah, if they're going to use it, theoretically, they're supposed to have a separate laneway too.
Okay.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry, through the chair to councillors, that is correct. So technically speaking, if the barn was to be maintained on the remnant parcel, generally speaking, usually we would include conditions that the applicant be required to receive a change of use permit from the building department to only allow for the storage use, which would remove any potential for livestock on that facility. The MDS condition obviously is also still applicable in that scenario. And then we would also typically include a condition stating that separate access would have to be provided by means of the remnant parcel and not through the severed portion of lands.
Other questions? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Silva.
Can I then just double check that we're going to add those two conditions then to the list?
I'm sorry?
Are we going to add those two conditions to the list then? Okay.
I'll just comment then before we answer that question. I look at this application and the first thing I thought was we have an opportunity here to make this lot significantly smaller, much the same as the Old London Township property with the trees. The trees are moot. There's a lot of, where it says part 1 area parcel to be severed, that area could be taken out of this, and it's not clean. I'm inclined to defer this and ask for further reductions, and we've moved wells, we've moved hydro poles, we've moved other pieces of I guess structures and so forth. The idea here is to preserve farmland or to increase the discussion about the barn and plowing around it and the driveway that's going to be coming to it and all the rest, I'm not sure this is ready for our perusal, but that's just me. So Councillor Silva had a question about conditions. Did you want to ask Dan about that?
I just wanted to make sure that if someone's gonna make a motion, that those two additional conditions Mr. Fitzgerald just mentioned regarding the access, additional access to the retained parcel, and that a change of use permit be required for any retained buildings on the retained parcel, that those be added as, I guess, two additional conditions of severance.
Right, because the severance is forever, not just for current. Yes, exactly. Okay, is there anything else from anyone before? No. Alrighty, then we have a motion before us. I'll ask if there's a mover. Councillor Shipley, the seconder. Councillor Silva, all in favor? Sorry? Oh, yes, so in other words, the amended motion would be all 15 plus the 2 items that Councillor Silva added. Okay, so we had in favor was 2 and, oh wait. That's okay, so the motion before us is the one that was presented by the planner and explained by the applicant's agent, plus 2 conditions about the road and the building. And then that's the motion. We had a mover and a seconder. So those in favor of that, okay. So we have 3, 4, and opposed, and the motion carries. Okay, moving on then, thank you. So we are on 10.6 now. And that is the request to remove the holding symbol on Oriole Park's property at Amiens Road. Okay, so we're going to start with Marion's presentation on this item. There you are.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to provide a recommendation regarding the request to remove a holding symbol, or the H7, from the property known as 22790 Amiens Road or Oriole Park Resort. To give you a brief history on this site and to provide that to council and to the public, a hold was placed on this property approximately 9 years ago to address a settlement agreement that was supported by the former Ontario Municipal Board to include a vegetative buffer as a result of an appeal by an adjacent landowner. This buffer was to address aesthetic concerns from an area resident and to be installed if any development was proposed within a certain area of the park itself. This buffer was only applicable to the land abutting Amiens Road and to Oxbow Drive. In 2018, the official plan and zoning bylaw were amended to include the hold symbol, including the holding symbol, to accommodate a request to have a year-round residency within the park. This year-round use was approved by council, subject to the conditions as identified within the hold symbol and the conditions. These conditions would need to be fulfilled and the hold removed prior to allowing any year-round residency on the park itself. So the conditions for this hold include the amendment to require to delineate the vegetative or dense forest buffer along Amiens Road or Oxbow Drive within the site plan agreement to the satisfaction of the municipality, as well as new conditions to confirm the suitability of the park model trailers for year-round use, as well as for the applicant to obtain an approved environmental compliance approval from the Ministry of the Environment to allow private on-site water and sewage disposal systems, as well as a new condition that the owner enter into a site plan agreement with the municipality that is registered on title. So notice of this public meeting was circulated in accordance with the Ontario regulation under the Planning Act. At the time of writing this report, I did not receive any comments from the public. However, I did receive comments via phone calls or emails from area residents. A few comments were related to on-site drainage concerns where pooling water is evident after major rain events or major storm events. Further, a neighboring property owner had identified concerns in 2018 and currently that related to the buffers along the property boundaries, including the eastern and southern property lines, which do not face Amiens or Oxbow. These buffers were not addressed within the zoning amendment in 2018. So this application was also considered by staff, and comments have been addressed either through the site plan agreement or through confirming or through the confirmation of fulfilling the conditions to remove the hold itself. Specifically, staff worked with the applicant to draft a site plan agreement that is before council today as well for approval and to fulfill condition A. In order to fulfill the condition to provide a vegetative buffer, the vegetative buffer or the dense forest has been delineated in accordance with that holding provision in the zoning bylaw within the site plan agreement, and it's known as the impacts buffer within the agreement itself. Staff have included the requirement for that buffer to be more consistent with the Ontario Municipal Board settlement, and that's to require the buffer in advance of any new development that is not identified within the site plan agreement anywhere else on the lands. MECP has also issued an environmental compliance approval in September 2020 related to those private water and sewage disposal systems. And finally, the chief building official is satisfied that the park model trailers are suitable for year-round use. As a result of the above, planning staff recommend that the hole be removed from the subject lands, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that report, Marion. I understand that we have the proponent, Ruth Hall is representing Oriole Park. Are you there, Ruth?
Yeah, and Wendy Nassett.
Oh, hi, Wendy.
Hi, good evening.
Go ahead, and it's your turn to make any comments.
Well, first, we just wanted to on behalf of myself and my sister, Ruth Hall, we just wanted to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to discuss removing the holding symbol from our year-round residential application. As you know, Oriole Park is a now 57-year-old family business, and it's extremely rare that a business will last and be successful for 57 years. It's also very rare to have a business run by two women. Also very rare to have a second generation business succeed, and not only succeed, but turn itself around and be able to sort of, you know, look into the future and meet future growth. And we've succeeded on all those levels, and we just couldn't be more proud of those successes. I think what's even more important to us though, is that we have been able to provide alternative, affordable living for, at this point, about 170 seniors, and in a very respectful and high standard resort. And we have positively affected many lives, and that's just can't be more rewarding for us. That's been our biggest success. It certainly hasn't come without challenges and decades of challenges, and we've met the challenges and we've adjusted accordingly, and we've had our highs and lows, but we always persevered, and we had to continue to adjust. And it certainly, I think, our successes have spoken for themselves, because I mean, we put in our own private communal wastewater treatment plant, our own private communal water treatment plant. And we have been totally responsible for doing that ourselves, and financially responsible ourselves, and from our own management. And bottom line is, the buck has always, for 57 years, the buck has stopped here. And we had to be responsible and liable for ourselves, for not only our parents' legacy, for our own livelihoods, but also for 170 seniors. So it's nothing we have done has not been without responsibility to ourselves. And I think that's been clear. Certainly that does not mean that it hasn't come without a whole lot of help, and we have to continuously appreciate and thank Middlesex Center for their ongoing support and assistance through the process as well. It's been of late a huge team effort to get the site plan agreement to this point, and a lot of negotiating and a lot of working together. And we certainly appreciate that. And we're certainly at the point now that we're willing to accept it as proposed.
Okay, thank you. I understand that Lee Mann is on the line to comment as well.
Hello, can you hear me? Not sure if my video works, but I want to apologize first of all if my internet connection isn't the best. So I'm not sure why you can't see me at the moment, but at least I guess if you can hear me. Can everyone hear me? Is that all right?
Tiny you, and we can hear you very well.
Oh, you can't see me though. I just wanted to
It's just
okay.
Yeah.
It's just your avatar, not video.
Oh, that's fine. And I just would rather have people hear me rather than have choppy video or anything. So I just wanted to address a couple of concerns that I have. Obviously, maybe as most of you are aware, I'm a budding property owner, 9533 Oxford Drive, Fernwood Hills. And I've had ongoing concerns, not about, I have nothing against my neighbors or development or anything like that that's been going on. I appreciate the work that they've been doing there. But I do have continuing and ongoing concerns of the privacy that is not afforded to my property in relation to proximity to development. So that's number one, but I do have another couple of concerns as it relates to specifics on removing the holding provision that I would like to address. So first of all, I know that there was mention of this, so please correct me if I'm wrong here, but the holding provision was put in place by an OMB appeal, and that states that the buffer must be in place before any development is taking place. So I am concerned that, at least as I read it previously, there was essentially a miscommunication there, or a misinterpretation, in my opinion, of what the appeal process for a vegetative buffer would include. So if you can address that for me, that'd be great.
Marion, you can speak to that.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. So there's a bit of a history in terms of the Ontario Municipal Board settlement and what was provided within the zoning bylaw. So up until 2018, so between 2011 and 2018, the zoning bylaw had stated that at any time before development had occurred on the lands, that the applicant would need to, I believe the word was install or provide for a dense vegetative buffer along Amiens and Oxwood Drive. In 2018, when the zoning and the official plan amendment were processed and approved by council, that wording changed to delineate. So that the buffer had to be delineated within a site plan agreement to the satisfaction of the municipality, but not necessarily installed or provided for. And that's why we were able to remove that condition today. And we're satisfied that that was addressed through the site plan agreement that's before council.
Okay, so I do have another question there in regards to 12-month operation. I know I've spoken to with this. I just wanted to clarify if the park's been able to operate or continues to operate under 12 months, or if that's not permitted up until this point. So as of right now, the status of 12-month operation.
Through Madam Mayor to Mr. Mann, that's correct. Up until this point, they shouldn't have been operating a 12-month operation. It should have been 11 months of the year. And up until this point, until the hold was removed, they wouldn't have been able to do that.
Okay, so I'm not sure if this is the exact process, but I do want to reiterate that the concerns from an Ontario appeal that there was a necessary requirement for a buffer along Amiens and Oxbow Drive. And I've repeatedly requested to council and to staff in regards to privacy along my property line, which is 5 feet with a chain link fence, which is in no way appropriate screening for any type of development in that nature. And again, it's nothing against the property owners or anything like that. I believe this is council's and staff's job to delineate a fair privacy benefit for both properties. And I feel that this has not been done. And so if council feels that it's still important to have privacy along Amiens and Oxbow, but not any type of privacy along the other property lines, I would welcome comments as to the reasonings to that nature. I've asked for this several times, and if it's such a big issue and the Ontario Municipal Board ruled that that was something that was important, why it's not continued to be important when I've asked for it several times. So I would like some comments on that as well.
Marian, do you want to speak to that, or should I ask Arnie? Or
through you, Madam Mayor, yes, I believe Arnie is on the line and be able to answer that question.
Okay, sorry, Arnie, are you there then? Let's see. Oh, I think he's there now. Okay. Go ahead, Arnie.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me all right?
Yes,
okay.
I can see you now too.
Yes. So through the mayor, I can advise that staff, myself, and our previous planner, Kelly Henderson, did attend the park and looked at the east boundary and the south boundary chain link fence, and we were satisfied that it appeared sound and provide a reasonable barrier between the two properties, and that the properties were reasonably compatible uses that did not trigger the need for something more private.
All right. I would like to see a little bit more in the actual wording. I would like to see something that states a little bit more of a time constraint, as far as I believe as it's written right now, in the near future is the term, as far as enacting that privacy buffer. So that's more or less ambiguous. So I would like to see something specifically as far as when that would be installed. I don't think that is a reasonable expectation as far as before changing from an OMB appeal that says before any development occurs to sometime in the future.
Yeah, through the mayor, I can answer, or Marian can. The requirement of the site plan agreement is that the buffer be in place prior to any further development along Amiens and Oxbow Drive.
All right. So Arnie, I just wanted to clarify too, then, since you're on here right now, that the park currently as it stands is not able to operate within the 12-month time until this holding provision passes. So as in like the last 2 years, etc.
That's correct. It's a seasonal occupancy at this time, open for 11 months. I think there's a couple exceptions for a security couple at the gate, and staff have monitored it over the last several years.
And that's been actively enforced, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Again, I want to reiterate to council as well that the need for privacy along my buffer. I know Marian came out or was going to come out and take a look, and the consideration for privacy, in my opinion, is abysmal. You say 5 feet is appropriate with a chain link fence. I completely disagree. My property, from a privacy perspective, is completely and 100% neglected from a privacy perspective. And again, I have no problem, no issues with my neighbors. They're all great people, but I think we would all benefit from privacy being in place upon my lot line. And that's a massive oversight that continues to be an issue. And I would like some explanations, to be honest, as to why that is deemed appropriate and currently as it is. Like, I don't understand where in development that is in any way appropriate.
Okay, I've just been asking for clarification because the motion in front of us is very clear, and This is an issue that is not part of this motion. I just wanted to make sure that I understand what it is we're voting on. I thought I'll ask the clerk to make sure we understand what is before us and what it is we're voting on.
Through the chair, thank you for that. I can confirm that what is before council at this time is the site plan agreement as printed in the agenda package, and that the recommendation is that the request from Oriole Park to remove the H7 holding symbol from the zoning of the land be approved. So the request from the delegate that we are hearing this evening with respect to additional privacy buffers is not currently accounted for within the site plan agreement.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Right. And the motion, I mean, this, what we're voting on is what council in the fall of 2018 voted on. We're just taking the holding symbols, removing the holding symbols so that the...
Correct. So yeah. The agreement was established in 2018 as part of the public development process related to this file. And at that time, that is when the conditions were set out for this development. So this step in the process is a confirmation that those requirements of the agreement have been met and that the municipality is lifting the holding zone.
And in fact, then the people can stay 12 months.
That is correct.
Right. Okay. Is there any question? I'll move to count. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't miss anybody. No. Does anyone on council want to ask a question about this then? Councillor Silva.
I guess I don't really want to ask, well, I want to go back to the planner through you, Madam Mayor. Marion, you said that you got a number of phone calls, emails earlier this week. You spoke to, I guess, everybody you could, and that the comments have been addressed in the site plan or in the report. Given the fact that Mr. Mann has actually been on this file and asking for more or less a 6-foot private wooden privacy fence or something along those lines for multiple years now, how can you say with certainty that his comments specifically have been addressed?
Through you, Madam Mayor Silva, some of the comments that were provided by Mr. Mann and some of the area of residents were not necessarily addressed through this H removal or the holding removal. I was just focusing on this application itself for removal of the H, where the applicant had fulfilled the conditions. With regard to some of the drainage issues, that is something that's done privately that the owner and applicant would have to address with their residents. And with Mr. Mann's concerns, that could be addressed through the site plan agreement. If council chooses to do so, they can include something that addresses it. But from 2018 up until now, as Arnie had mentioned, staff did not find that it was necessary for that to be addressed through the site plan agreement or through the zoning bylaw amendment that was passed in 2018.
Okay, I'm going to disagree personally. If I was in Mr. Mann's position, I would also be quite upset about not seeing anything regarding really his primary concern, despite the fact that he's been on this for years at this point. And I'm not trying to hold up Wendy and Ruth's plans here. I like them, I like what they're doing, but I'm not comfortable ratifying a site plan control agreement today, which is what's coming shortly after this, that doesn't include some sort of privacy fence for the eastern side of the property. I've been on both sides of the property, thanks to a tour provided by Oriole Park's owners and through outreach by Mr. Mann as well. I don't find it sufficient in any way. And I actually made that really clear a couple of years ago. So I'm disappointed that it hasn't been addressed either through the residents' concerns or through my own concerns. So and my concern is that if we vote in favor of item 10.6, as has often happened in the past, 10.6 sometimes includes the site plan control agreement as well, the bylaw, item 15.6. And I don't know if one can be done without the other. So, and I don't believe they can. So I'm going to say, you know, hopefully to the rest of council, this is not quite done, in my opinion. One more thing needs to be added here. A privacy fence needs to be added to that eastern side of the property. And that can be done and back here in a month. So it's not a huge delay given what time of year it is anyway. So I'm going to make a motion on that eventually. I hope you'll support it. We'll see what happens, but I don't feel like we're quite there.
Could I just say something? There is basically a barrier that's already up. It was put up by Mr. Mann, and it basically is a barrier all along the property. But to put a wooden fence up right at the very end of for our residents, that's going to totally block any view that they have.
Of Mr. Mann's property?
Yeah, of anything.
Well, the view is of Mr. Mann's property.
But there already is a barrier there, is what I'm saying.
That he has erected
barrier.
His own cost and his own effort by planting additional trees and that sort of thing. That's great, but he's had to do that. There's been no cost sharing there. He's had to do that in order to try and afford himself an additional bit of privacy. And I don't think it's unreasonable, given the amount of expansion you're looking for here, to put up a wooden fence.
But if we don't agree with that, if we don't agree that there should be one, why should we have to be forced to put one up at our expense when I don't see the need for this huge privacy barrier between our two properties?
There already is one, but to put up a wooden fence is
look horrible,
terrible.
I just wanted to
beautiful country.
Questions through staff, please, on these conversations. If there's a question of staff, can we put them through and get them answered that way, please? Is there a question that we want to direct to staff then and clarify? No. No, okay. Is there any other question from other council on this? I was perplexed. Okay.
Actually, is my mic still on?
This is an offside. This is not, the motion before us is pretty clear. And what we're trying to do is add some kind of nuance to something that's got not. There are 3 people here at this meeting who voted on that motion. And I'm not clear why it is we're disagreeing with that motion now. So I don't know if this can be taken offside or if there's another way of addressing that, but this is a motion to discuss or to address the holding symbol piece. So we're confusing things here by layering, asking proponents to comment on things that they commented on in the previous meeting, at the public meeting that in that process that we went through in 2018 prior to the vote. These questions were asked and answered and or should have been addressed at that time. This is not, we can't reopen the planning file now to say, well, we want to change this and the water and this and that. We did the Conservation Authority report. There was a discussion there. The owners of the park were upset at the time because this was the first time the Conservation Authority said there's water. We've been through this. That I'm not really clear on why we're moving away from the discussion that's in front of us.
Okay, so a couple of points. 1, new information always comes to light. B, people can change their minds over time, especially over 2 years. And 3, I'm not trying to change anything regarding drainage or the private site works or anything like that. I'm asking for staff to go back and reconsider the fact that they have not asked for any sort of privacy barrier on the eastern side of the property. That's it. I don't want to reopen the entire planning file. If we pass site plan control agreement later today, that's pretty much final. I don't like I get a lot of pushback from staff of this can be dealt with later. This can be dealt with later. Constituents hear it all the time. But if this isn't the right place, if this isn't the right time to handle that and rethink it, when is? There's a question for staff. If we pass this tonight without a privacy barrier on the eastern side of the portion, when is the right time to
no, but that is not part of this whole process. That's part of
We're going to ask this question. I'm waiting for my staff to ask that question, to answer the question.
Yeah, through the chair, if we could just get back, I understand what Councillor Silva is saying. For council's benefit and for the public's benefit that are on the line, there's 4 conditions that were that have to do with this H holding zone, and those 4 conditions are based on the decision of the council of the day back in 2018. The report before you is that to report back to advise that staff has worked with Oriole Park to satisfy those 4 conditions. And we're at a point where we can go ahead and execute the site plan agreement, which would permit Oriole Park to have their 12-month residency. Now, as Councillor Silva is bringing up or raising about fencing on the easterly side, that's not part of those 4 conditions. So we would need further direction. If we wanted to defer it, just take into consideration that the direction is outside of these 4 conditions that satisfy the holding symbol. So we need something it's 2 issues basically. We can't get the fencing issue mired with the 4 conditions that lift this holding symbol. All I can assure council is that staff have worked with Royal Park and we have an agreement that satisfies the lifting of the H zone. It does not, and yes, it does not address the buffer on whatever property, but that wasn't a condition that is part of this H zone. So that's something outside of that.
Is that part then of 2020-086, item 15.6 later? Because that's the site plan control agreement. Item 15.6 being a bylaw to approve and ratify a site plan control agreement between Oriole Park and the municipality.
Through the chair, so the site plan is before council this evening if it desires to go ahead and execute it, which addresses the 4 points.
Yeah, that's the motion before us. Okay.
Through the chair, just to provide some clarification, Councillor Silva is referring to bylaw 2020-086 listed as item 15.1 on our agenda, and that is the site plan agreement for Oriole Park.
15.6.
15.6, pardon me. So that is the item we're referring to as the site plan agreement. And yes, the site plan agreement is tied to the request to remove the holding symbol.
So correct me if I'm wrong, James, but if item 15 point or 10.6 is passed, does that automatically include item 15.6, or is that still being done separately later in bylaws?
The bylaw will need to be passed separately. However, by council approving a request to remove the holding symbol, approving item 10.6, should that be the direction they go, they would be signaling their intent to pass the bylaw further on in the meeting. So similar to another planning application where a zoning bylaw amendment may be approved, and then later thereafter in the meeting, the subsequent or attached bylaw is approved under bylaws. So when council makes the decision to approve the holding symbol and approve this, they're signaling their intent to then deal with that bylaw under the bylaws section.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you. So
thank you.
Regardless of the fact that the 4 conditions for removing the holding symbol have been met, if by some chance there are 3 other people who agree with me here that some sort of privacy barrier should be addressed on the eastern side of the property, it's really now or never.
So are we holding someone else hostage because they've done what they're supposed to do to make sure that those homes are built and the people can move in and stay all year? That's okay, because the fence should be changed at this point in time, when that was part of the process that started 2 years ago during the planning piece.
Through the chair, maybe trying to think out of the box. Maybe we do a split vote where, so we can compartmentalize. Councils, we know we're dealing with the H zone, and I can comfortably tell council we followed the direction. So that's before you. The issue that Councillor Silva is raising about the buffer, maybe we can take it as a separate direction or vote that we approach Oriole Park, and it would, with the understanding it's outside of this site plan agreement, but we can have that dialogue, we can take the direction and somehow speak to them about the consideration to erect additional privacy fencing and report back to council. But council has to understand they're two separate issues, but we're more than happy to do that if that's your desire.
How is it a separate issue when it's something like that has to be in the site plan control? I'm taking the information you're giving me and I'm trying to parse it for achieving the end goal, and asking to consider or like non-affirmative words, it means basically they get to choose the way you've worded that, right?
Well, through the chair, as I said, the end goal for the site plan has been achieved. But to remove the holding symbol has been achieved. So what as stated to council, we're confident we fulfilled the conditions. So that's achieved. If it's something beyond or something, because what's being asked is something different for more vegetation or buffering or privacy. So we can certainly take that and have a dialogue with, perhaps we include Oriole Park and the adjacent landowner and come up with some sort of agreement or suggestions that could be put forward.
Right, because the wording that was used previously was a barrier. That was a check in the box. Now we're talking about privacy fence. So even that is now changed from what it was originally. And now that's being used as a condition of, well, before we pass this holding piece, we're going to make sure we can get the other part done. I'm saying there's two different issues here. And I'm not willing to hold one resident hostage for another. It's convenient that it happens now because it's now or never, and therefore all the work that's been done by staff, by the resident, by the ministry on the project, by the lawyers to get the agreements done. Oh, well, that doesn't matter. And I'm just saying it does matter too. We have to weigh the two. There are consequences for both parties, but if there's an alternative to have a conversation and to move the project forward and address that, which was addressed in 2018. Before I open another can of worms here, I'm saying we better be sure that we're willing to say no lawyers, no ministry, no anything. That's yeah. Yes, Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Okay, just to go back to what we've heard through staff, the barrier was a chain link fence, which is put up, and they examined it and felt there was nothing further required. Mr. Mann, from what I'm understanding, has decided he wanted something more, so he has planted additional vegetation on his side to buffer it. So we're talking now about putting he wants a board fence up, where we already have a chain link fence and further vegetation that he's put up to buffer it more. I don't know what we're arguing about here. Mr. Mann saw fit that he wanted more, so he planted more to buffer it. Staff said the chain link fence was sufficient. So both sides have been met now, as far as I can see, and I don't know what we're arguing about at this point in time anymore. I would make a motion, Madam Mayor, that we go ahead and remove the holding symbol from the plan. Thank you.
Can I say something quickly? Hello?
I'm sorry, I turned it off because...
No, that's okay. I wasn't sure if you were mad at me or something. It's okay.
Go ahead, Lee.
My concern is not based on the exact appropriate actions that need to be taken and whether the fence is a fence or whether it's something else. My concerns are that the municipality is unfairly not considering privacy and will not consider privacy as it relates to a mutual respect for the two properties. And to be honest, I've seen time and time again that this staff neglect any sort of consideration. It's not like, let's go a little bit towards some more privacy. It's nothing at all, nothing. And additionally, if you'd like something else, I have actual evidence that the municipal staff have been knowingly participating in allowance of 12 months occupation for many, many years. So I am concerned that staff is not in any shape or form willing to even come to the table as it concerns to privacy. Again, I have respect for my neighbors. I think they're doing a great job in what they're doing. I honestly do. But I don't think that the concern around privacy has been addressed in the slightest as it concerns to me. And you know, you just talk about board fence. I told Mary, and I said, I'm all for creative ways of thinking here. If you guys don't like a board fence, you know, there's all kinds of other solutions. I understand. I don't want a board fence either. But you know what? I also chose to put those up after I felt that the municipal staff has not represented my privacy or the mutual respect of privacy appropriately. And that's why I put it up. I can easily effectively take that down. I would be happy to take that down, because you know what? As my neighbors have even probably seen and addressed, I don't want that. I would prefer not to have that there, right? That's something that as this property development occurs and happens, they should be the ones responsible for putting privacy up. What if it's not me that's in the future? What if it's somebody else? That they should be able to choose to do what they want on their property. And the ones that are 5 feet to the fence with all these places there, they should be the ones responsible for privacy against any neighbors. And that's what it is. And if you would like, I can forward you a letter that I have come by that has actually been reported to the Ombudsman now that has concerns about systemic bias of this municipality staff. And that's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned not about that we won't take appropriate actions here, but that the right steps are being purposely overlooked. And that's why I get what you're saying, that this is not totally related to the holding symbol, but what it is related to is the systemic nature in which the development is occurring without proper consideration of privacy towards the neighbors. That's it. That's all it is. And that's why I'm fearful. That's why I am fearful that this will not get addressed in the future. And this is why I try to hit it at every possible opportunity. And if you'd like me to display that letter to you that's now been forwarded to the Ombudsman about this, I'll be happy to send that to you. Because this has happened multiple times over the years. And that's why I asked about 12 months, because that's what it's come to. And I'm happy to do that, because this actually represents something that's bigger than the holding symbol itself. I'm happy to come up with creative solutions. I'm happy to do so. I'm happy to even dialogue about having some give and take. That's fine, but there's been none.
Okay, so that's the last to the public participant. I'll call a vote then. Or is there another question? Did you? No, okay. In that case, we have a motion before us. I have a mover, Deputy Mayor Brennan. Yeah, and sorry, question or you're second the motion. Okay. Procedurally, then I will ask if you want to defer the motion first. We have a mover. And we have a seconder. All in favor of, what's that? All in, the time?
Excuse me, through the chair, should we be placing a deferral on the floor at this time, we need to note the time to which it will be deferred and direction as to what staff is looking at when the deferral comes back. So we need a clear direction for that piece.
So you have a mover, you want to state the time?
Sure. It is 8:45 p.m.
No, the time of the deferral.
Oh, the time?
How long will the event be? The deferral will be
1 month.
1 month.
1 month deferral for staff to work with the applicant on a privacy barrier on the eastern side of the property. No problem.
Okay. And you're still happy with that motion, the seconder? Okay, that's okay. And I'll call the vote then. All of those in favor of deferring? Opposed? And that is failed. And now the motion before us is the motion as presented in the agenda. The mover is Deputy Mayor Brennan and the seconder is Councillor Shipley. And all in favor? Opposed? And that motion is carried. Okay. Moving to the final item. 10.7, which is a zoning bylaw amendment. I'll ask Dan Fitzgerald to present the report for tri-recycling. Oh, it is on.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Mayor David, and to all members of council. Just going to share my screen here. So as council is aware, this item was previous at the last public meeting, held on June 23rd, 2020. And the application for council is with respect to a property that's located at 21484 Clark Road, which is a concurrent consent for lot addition and zoning bylaw amendment application. The applicant is requesting to sever a portion of lands from the existing agricultural land base and add it to the abutting property, while also amending the zoning of the lands to permit the retail sale of byproducts, which are upgraded as part of the existing recycling facility on the abutting lands. The subject property is approximately 66.25 acres or 26.8 hectares of agricultural land, which contain a drainage ditch that is regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. The subject property consists of vacant farmland that previously housed a farm dwelling and also contains a drain which bisects the property. The lands surrounding the drain are regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, as previously noted, and the abutting lands to the east are currently owned and operated by Tri Recycling as the recycling facility. Lands to the south are located within the City of London's jurisdiction and are generally used for resource extraction, and lands to the immediate west are used for both industrial purposes and agricultural lands in crop production. The lands to the north also consist of agricultural land in crop production as well. The land is designated agricultural area according to the County of Middlesex official plan, agricultural by the Middlesex Center official plan. It's also, the parcel proposed to be severed and conveyed as zone agricultural A1 zone by the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. The applicant's agent is proposing to sever and merge a 4.55 acre or 1.84 hectare portion of land with the abutting property. The land's proposed to be consolidated with the abutting portion of lands which is currently used as a recycling facility and would create a parcel with a lot frontage of approximately 256.99 meters and a lot area of approximately 61.74 acres or 24.9 hectares. The retained parcel would have a frontage of approximately 401 meters and an area of approximately 40.28 acres, and would maintain the agricultural use of the lands. The applicant's agent has also proposed a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the proposed severed portion of lands to be consolidated from an agricultural A1 zone to a site-specific extractive industrial exception M1-4 zone. To permit the establishment of an accessory retail use for the purpose of selling products produced by the permitted recycling facility. The retained parcel of land is proposed to be rezoned to a site-specific agricultural exception zone which would recognize the undersized nature of the land. Planning staff have identified several policies in the planning report for council to consider. Generally speaking, planning staff are of the opinion that the key policies identified in the Provincial Policy Statement 2020 and County Middlesex Official Plan, especially as it relates to protecting natural heritage features, supporting healthy, integrated, and viable rural areas, and promoting economic development and competitiveness are achieved with the proposal. Middlesex Center's official plan designates the area agricultural. However, staff believe the utilization of policy 1.4 to interpret designation boundaries is appropriate given the existing lot fabric. As such, the lands are interpreted to fall within the Parks and Recreation designation, as well as Special Policy Area number 11 of the local official plan. The designation permits recycling facilities and allows for the natural economic progression of business towards selling recycling products produced on site. Likewise, planning staff viewed the lot consent for the purpose of a lot addition as appropriate, given the designation boundaries and extension of the existing economic activities. The conveyance complies with the minimum lot frontage and area requirements of the comprehensive zoning bylaw. The resulting remnant agricultural lands would not conform to the minimum lot size requirements. However, as previously noted, a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment has been proposed to amend the minimum lot requirements for the agricultural parcel. Further, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for the lands that would be consolidated and deemed appropriate, is deemed appropriate as it would constitute a well-defined extension to an existing abutting use. It also limits the area available for an accessory retail sales establishment and limits the availability of products sold to those that are produced and upgraded on site. Planning staff were aware of the potential concerns regarding the implementation of the retail use, given the proximity to a natural feature, which is a drain. As such, planning staff have recommended the addition of a holding provision, which requires the applicant to enter into a site plan agreement. This will ensure proper studies and development standards are followed in the establishment of the proposed accessory retail use. Given the above, planning staff are recommending that the subject application be approved, subject to the conditions included in the consent application and the placement of a holding zone on the lands. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Dan. We have Matt from Zelenka Priamo, who's going to speak for the applicant.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Dan. We appreciate that. We did discuss this proposal back at the previous public meeting. We're still in agreement with the staff recommendation, and we have no issues with the holding provision nor any of the conditions that staff are recommending for the consent. Given that we've already discussed this, I don't want to take up any more of council's time, but I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have regarding the proposal and the use and the two applications that you have before you tonight.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. I'll ask, are there any questions from council? Yes, Councillor Shipley.
Through Madam Mayor to Matt, this is for sales of topsoil aggregates, I believe. You already have one unit there selling that product. Are they going to continue to, or is this being consolidated into one?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Shipley, my understanding is that the existing operation is on the west side of the road. Essentially what this is going to bring that operation totally in-house to Try Recycling on the east side of the road. And the products are going to be along the lines of what you just described, topsoil, materials that are derived from some of the construction material recycling that they have, aggregate recycling, things of that nature. The idea is that if you want to come in and pick up, say, crushed concrete or something like that, bring in a pickup truck, you can come in, load it up out of one of the bunkers and pay at the sales trailer and then just drive out, just to make things nice and easy for everyone.
Just to confirm that, there is Patton Brothers in there right now, and they are on the west side of the road. So is this going to be the same company, or is it your own company then that's going to happen?
Through you, Madam Mayor, My understanding is that it is going to be Try Recycling operating this this use, and not the organization that is on the west side of the road.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, we have the motion before us along with the 11 conditions. Is there a mover for this item? Councillor Scott, and seconded by Councillor Shipley. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, gentlemen. I think that's it for all the planning items tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving now to, we have to go to public meeting before I move on to the next. Oh yeah, here we are. That the planning committee closes now at 8:56 p.m. and reconvene the regular meeting at that time. Mover, Councillor Silva and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. All right, we have two correspondence items tonight. We have both budget items from the Upper Thames and the Oswego Bayfield Conservation Authorities. Are any comments, questions? No? In that case, we'll move to the County Council update. Oh, sorry, yes, we have to receive them. Yes. Yes, could we have a motion that the correspondence items 12.1 and 12.2 be received for information? Councillor Arts and Councillor Heffernan. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Now, if we could have the County Council update, Deputy Mayor Brennan.
First report came from the Deputy Chief of Medic Services. Received response times 2020 same as 2019. There was a slight increase in some of our more serious calls, but that mainly due to dispatch. We'll dispatch to a code 3, which is one of our a little bit lesser. Sorry, code 3, but when they arrive, it's actually a code 4, more serious call. So it delays them getting there when they get the wrong code to run with. It's not running lights, the sirens, maybe just lights. So that was part of the reason why there was a slight delay in the more serious calls. The transportation system, the local transportation system is working very hard with its neighbors in Oxford County and Lambton County to fine-tune the transportation system, and so far it's working fairly well, and hopefully it will continue through with the work of everybody cooperating. We had a report or a recommendation from Hay Telecommunications. They were wanting to lay some more fiber line up in the northwest part of the county, and they wanted permission to lay it down the road allowance of some county roads, and we had no real problems with that. In the county, there's a mayor's women's caucus. The women councilors in Middlesex County have been meeting and discussing things, and they're looking at expanding that to other councilors, women councilors within the county, and they talk about getting more people involved and the things that they can accomplish as women representing the different areas of the county. So that's one of the first across Ontario that they've done this, and from what I understand, it's working quite well. There's a rural education task committee, and they've been meeting, and they make recommendations to the school boards about different things that are required or are needed within the education system. So that is also ongoing throughout the county. We had a report from Mark Brown, our forester. The trails throughout the county woodlots are still open, have been open through all of the COVID-19. They allow some hunting, bow and arrow hunting, horseback riding, hiking, mountain biking. They're well-used trails, apparently. They have did some harvesting of some trees in the woodlots to maintain the health of the woodlots. They took out about 1.8 million board feet of walnut this past year, which high prices for walnuts. So they did see quite a bit of money. They've replanted some 2,400 trees throughout for windbreaks in different areas at a cost of about $92,000. The Mark Brown is also part of the county lead officer in the clean water program. He is our representative in that program and works on that program also. Chris Treen did a speed limit review. He had several requests. One, he is moving the speed limit in Lobo a little bit further outside the hamlet because of the expansion of dairy lanes. So he's moved that speed limit, lower speed limit outside the hamlet a little more because of that expansion. Some people wanted to see the speed limit lowered from 70 to 60 in Illerton. He didn't feel that was needed or required, so he isn't doing that. Bryanston was no change either. For 60, they wanted the 60 all the way down to 11 Mile Road. And yeah, they're not changing that. Yeah. No, there was on the south end of Illerton on Hyde Park Road, they wanted the speed limit from 70 to 60 all the way down to 10 mile. It changes just at the top of the hill, and that's not changing either. Rumble strips, they've made some adjustments to the ones down here. They're still fairly loud, but they're also getting some complaints from one at Melbourne Road in Egremont, and they're dealing with that also. As a municipality, Tiffany stated earlier, we will not be applying for phase 2 funding from the province because we're in pretty good shape. That applies to the county also. They're not going to apply for any funding at this point in time because financially they're in pretty good shape with the way things have got and what they got in phase 1. And those are the main highlights of the county.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the Deputy Mayor? Councillor Heffernan?
Through the mayor to John, so Strathmere Lodge though now has COVID?
Yes, they have one. They had one case of COVID, I think, and Bill Rayburn, the county CEO, has made a recommendation, which we're able to do to be more stricter than what the province is saying, and we're locking down all 3 senior care homes in Strathroy. Just to lock it all down until we get things under control. So there'll be tighter restrictions there, even more than what the province is saying.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you for that report then. And we have to receive it? Yep, we do. No. Okay. So the next item is bylaws. And we have bylaws 2081 through 2084. A motion that those items listed on the October 28th, 2020 council agenda be adopted as printed. Clarification. Yeah.
Through the chair, one point of clarification related to a typographical error on our agenda is that we're referring to bylaws 20081 through to 20088. Thank you.
Right. There were some added. And I'd noted it and I forgot. That was my boo-boo. Sorry about that. Okay, so we have those items. If I could have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Scott and Councillor Heffernan. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And the last thing is the adjournment. Is there no other business? I don't think so. Any other business? No. Okay, very well. Then that the motion before us is that the Council of Municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourns October 28th, 20 emergency council meeting at 9:05. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Arts and Councillor Silva, all in favor?